Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to have a fun time today. Looking
Hooray.
at Confused Matthew. All right. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 538, Back to the Future, Part 2 review, which is a Confused Matthew review that came out 14 maybe years ago. I don't recall exactly when I saw this. And we're getting at the revised version, so he updated it, he re-uploaded it. Let me just check the date on that. When did he re-upload this? Oh, it was 5 years ago in April. Okay, so April 24th, 2017. And if you guys don't remember Confused Matthew, he had a lot of interesting takes and a lot of really weird bad takes on videos, on movies that sort of I've never seen or thought about that before. And that's why I really liked the guy. And then he just sort of went into obscurity. He stopped making videos. And I think life caught up with him. And then he came back. So now he does a lot of video game plays, let's play, I think. But I haven't seen him since. So good times, good memories, man. Back in the 2008s or something. I can't remember when.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, back when we had video responses. You click the button to reply, and there's make a video response, and you could record yourself.
Oh yeah, that was good. That actually got me interested in YouTube back then, and then that disappeared, and I lost interest in YouTube.
Yeah, back in 2012 or 13, they got rid of it because the argument was no one was using it, even though it was 0.4%. It's so it's still a feature.
Yeah.
So
and especially for actual discourse.
Yeah, and they had instead of up and down vote, you had the 5-star rating, which was the Google rating. That's why they were using it, which is a schema that Google sort of still has, but doesn't use anymore. But I like that better than the up and down because you could say, well, this is a 3-star video. I liked it, but it wasn't great. Or this is a 4-star video. It's really good, but it's not perfect. So anyway, we lost a lot of things back in the day, but that's YouTube. And here we are looking at YouTube on another website altogether, reviewing videos from yesteryear. What a great time to be alive. It's fantastic.
We're doing it anyway.
Yeah. So we're going to... Should we watch the intro? The intro's 5 minutes. I don't want to know if you guys want to do that.
I mean, it gives clarifications to info from the main review.
Yeah.
It's
when I saw this video was up today, or this topic, I rewatched the movies, and I haven't seen them since I was a teen, and man, are they good!
They're funny. They're weird.
They're so good. They have energy. The pacing is great, and they're not rushing things. They're not dragging things out. There's no filler. It's fast. It's just good movies. It's not super fast.
The pacing
it just keeps going at a good pace. It still breathes, so it still gives you time between the action, and it knows how to make tense moments. And what Cyrek just told me today is that what I didn't know back then is that Part 2 and 3 should actually just have been one movie,
right. But
there was so much stuff that they cut it in 2 movies.
Yeah, and they filmed one after the other.
Which is why at the end of the second movie you have so much preview footage from the next movie already.
Well, even the ending of the first film led directly into the second, and it's so I want to say something about pacing because each scene has a plot-related element, and then it's oh my God, we got to fix that. And then they get to the next scene, and there's another problem, and that gets in the way of the previous problem. And it just keeps going. It's wow, this is so interconnected. And it's just one plot line of trying to save I think it's the family or the whole city. Doc Brown is disappearing. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the main plot.
Yeah, in the third movie, it's to get Doc Brown back to the present.
Right.
Yeah, it's to save his life because in 2 or 3 days after his letter was written, he would be shot. A week?
It was a week, yeah.
Yeah, something.
He wrote it on the 1st, and he dies on the 8th.
What, the 9th?
8th or 9th. It was at least a week.
Yeah, so
from writing the letter.
It was kind of cool.
I wrote it on the 5th.
Is set up for the next scene and the next scene, and then they have the next film. It's all these three films are just perfectly set up with each
Yeah.
other. Now, I'm not saying they're perfect films. I'm not saying
I
they're
mean, the
amazingly
first
written.
one stands on its own. The first one can stand on its own, no
Yeah.
problem, with a nice cliffhanger and open ending.
Absolutely.
And the other two, and this is what I like about this, that it gives itself so much time that, okay, just make it 2 movies because we have so much stuff. And if that had been made today, it would have instead become Jupiter Ascending, which is just 3 movies crammed into one, and it's racing through. Nothing can breathe. No characters can really flesh out, and it's just too much at once.
All right. Well, we've
Always, if you have so much stuff to tell, just make your first standalone movie, and if it's well, then you make the next one.
Well, we've got almost 30 minutes of Confused Matthew. There's a lot of him just talking in general, so we might just skip the intro if it's just wasting our time. But we might finish this tomorrow if we want to keep going. It's up to you guys. I don't know. But
I've never seen this guy.
I don't remember what he said about Back to the Future 2. If he loved it or he hated it, I can't recall. But we'll find out.
I'd say it's like either not played. It's either not played at all or just play the intro at the end.
Spoiler alert! It's a lot of like claiming that the movie is essentially just a rehash of.
Not really. It makes references to the first movie, but it does it well, and it does it in a self-aware fashion.
See, this reminds
because
me.
It's going into scenes of the first movie, which is what makes this interesting blend.
This reminds me
because you're messing with time travel within time travel.
This reminds me of the 80s in general. Like you had the sequel to Ghostbusters 2, which was pretty much the same as Ghostbusters 1, just with more stuff. And those kinds of, like, it worked already, let's do it again sort of idea. And
yeah, but that's what I mean with this Back to the Future 2 does it in a smart manner. It is not just here's reference, but they have plot relevance. They're tied into each other. They make jokes, or you have you have really nice foreshadowing tricks with Doc Brown's Hawaii shirt that he has in Back to the Future 2, with which he is in the future. It has trains on them. It has futuristic-looking trains on them. But we are not yet in the third movie. So it's foreshadowing the train time machine that he's building at the end.
Yep.
And those are the little nudges. So it's not just referencing the past, it's foreshadowing the future. It's all tying into one big yarn ball. And that is the difference towards other movies that just play the member berries.
Okay.
This is a time travel movie.
Yeah, no,
it makes sense to use them.
It's probably most people's first understanding of time travel in media, or at least a movie media, and it does a decent job. It's not perfect, you can tell.
Yeah. And it's rather a lot of Chekhov's guns that are being used.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my hand is disappearing. That means I'm dying or no longer existing in this reality. Therefore, I have to change that. Kind of stuff like that, which is a little wonky, and everyone sort of knows that. But it's like it gets the conflict going so that.
Yeah, but what I mean with Chekhov's guns is in Back to the Future 2, Marty plays at the arcade and shows the kids how to play a really, really old game. They make fun of him for, what, you have to use hands for this? Is this a kid's game? And then in part 3, it's shown that he being a really good shot is what gives him credence in the Old West, gives him a lot of reputation.
Yep.
And as well, in part 2, when he walks into Biff's, when Biff is in the pool with his paid ladies, he's watching a Clint Eastwood movie with where he has the metal plate as armor hidden.
Bulletproof
and
vest,
that is and that is the
Pot
trick.
Stove.
Yeah, and that is what Marty uses in the third movie himself. Which can also then mean, because he takes on the name Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
Inspired the movie in the film in this reality. Because that's a thing that now happened in history.
Also, the naming of the actor Clint Eastwood.
that was in part 3, I think, the movie.
Yeah, that in the Back to the Future universe, Clint Eastwood is named after the old Wild West hero of Hill Valley.
Nice.
That he's named Clint because of this Wild West guy that stopped Buford Tannen.
Yeah, great stuff.
Alrighty.
So it's all tying in back and forth, not just in Look a Memberberry. Everything is used.
Alrighty, guys, let's get going.
I forgot I had Ginga Man turned all the way down to 0. I was wondering why there was like just a stunned silence for a second. I'm like, oh yeah, Ginga's here. Turn him up,
Really?
turn
What
it
the
back
hell,
up.
man?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Ugh.
All right.
And a quick thing: the review was originally a 3-parter. The transitions between parts are still there.
Oh,
Like
so
the to be
it was-
continued, to be continued. Welcome to part so and so. That's still there,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's not that long.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. Geez, man, 10-minute videos back on YouTube, man. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
All right.
The Lion King is often mistaken as my first review, sometimes even by me. Even I forget about this one sometimes. But Back to the Future Part 2 was technically the first. Before this one I had done a few short videos here and there, but this was the first time I actually sat down and reviewed a film all the way through. However, the review you're about to see and hear is not actually the original. If you notice, the theme song shows off the Generation 2 Matthew face, whereas the original review would have shown off the Generation 1 Matthew face. See, when I got a few reviews deep into the original channel, I went back and realized that the audio quality of this original review was unbelievably horrendous. And yes, even by Confused Matthew standards. I still have problems with audio to this day. I could barely understand what I was saying in that thing. I have no idea how anybody else could. So I went back and re-recorded the whole thing and re-uploaded it. I didn't change anything about the review or the script or anything like that. It just kind of sounded better. But the original is unfortunately lost in time forever. So this, I guess, is Schrodinger's review. It's both my first and not my first. This was also the debut of the theme song, something that my brother recorded for me as a joke. Contrary to what some people believe, I did not intend this to be the official Confused Matthew theme song, and contrary to what people believe, I am not singing in this. That's not me singing, it's my brother. I think we're all aware of what a singing job I am capable of after listening to the Lion King re-review. That opening was never meant to be used as a theme song at all, but people apparently really liked it, so I kept using it. So anyway, this is the original Back to the Future Part 2 review. It's something that caused a little bit of controversy at the time, but also at the time I only had, I think, about 30 subscribers, or somewhere along there, so I wasn't really envisioning this review as going out to a whole hell of a lot of people, which I think probably explains some of the things I said and the way that I said it. I'm going to be doing a re-review of this one, similar to the way that I did The Lion King, sometime in the future, so I can't say too much in the commentary about anything I would like to have changed. I will say that this is when I was just starting out trying to express my ideas through the Confused Matthew character, and characters on YouTube like the Angry Video Game Nerd and the Nostalgia Critic were kind of a guideline for me on how to do that. I'm not sure it was done as successfully as it could have been in the beginning. I begin this review by saying Back to the Future Part 2 is one of the worst sequels that has ever been put to film.
What?
I mean, it took me a long time to learn that I don't have to use hyperbole to get every idea across. But,
yeah,
you know,
a lot of people
we live and
today
we learn.
haven't.
I don't think Back to the Future Part 2 is one of the worst sequels that's ever been put to film. It's not very good when compared to the other two. That's about it. You'll also notice that I bring up a completely left-field complaint about Marty's daughter not being the kind of person who would break someone out of prison. And if you watch this review asking yourself how anyone in their right mind would even vaguely notice something like that, you'll have to wait until the re-review, but yeah, that was not worth mentioning. There's a reason I did.
Did he do a re-review of this? It's been 5 years.
As far as I'm aware, he never did.
Oh well.
This is
And
not
unfortunately, you'll just have to wait to figure out
sequel.
what it is. That amuses me. That part of the review amuses me. I also think that I completely misunderstood the Wachowski quote at the end of this, but again, I've got a re-review to do, so I'll keep those kinds of observations under wraps until then. But one thing I do want to make clear before this begins. At the beginning of this review, I go into the issue of how a good writer could have worked Jennifer into the story in some way, and I even attributed Zemeckis and Gale's failure to do so.
What?
Oh no, sorry.
But no, it's actually a good question. What do you need the children for? They're not that relevant. They're just side characters.
Well, that's what he's saying right here. He brought that up in the original video, and it's like he eventually realized, there was no way to salvage it. He's saying that he realized that.
Yeah.
But before
even Marty's son is relatively irrelevant.
Yes.
The whole point is not to actively interact with anyone from the family, but interact around them.
Okay. Oh, I just got a super chat. Didn't realize that. Sorry. Hey there, Turmoil. Thanks for the 5. Second movie has a huge plot hole on how Marty traveled back to the alternate future present and is the contradicted by Doc's explanation later. Yeah, a lot of the explanation doesn't quite, even in all the films, they don't quite make sense. They're not perfect. But that's...
I'm not too sure. The timeline stuff is a bit wonky, where I think you can make more of a case, because I didn't notice that one, but I think you can make more of a case is Biff returning to the future that Doc and Marty are still in.
Yeah.
That should have changed by then, so he should not be able to return to that future where Doc and Marty are in at that point.
Yeah, because he steals...
However, this can imply some weird thing, although it doesn't. It that actually contradicts the movie logic. Well, that the timeline would take time in order to shift to that. But what we see is that when Biff returns, he seems to be dying.
Well,
so that Biff can't exist anymore. But it's kind of that I would say is the actual time travel plot hole. How could Biff return to this future?
Well, then again, the first movie itself, part of the plot there is that it took time for the changes to take effect.
Yes.
The issue
that seems to be how the movie needs it.
Yeah, if you guys don't recall, there's the thing where Biff from the future sees the DeLorean and he's like, okay, I'm going to go back in time, give my younger self the almanac that has all the scores of all the games coming up, and then he goes back to the future, and that's when everything's changed and they get sick and all this crap. So it's like you have to understand, what does that mean? How does that work? And it just works. It just happens.
Yeah, he's not. The thing is, he's not disappearing.
Right. He should have been changed.
He should be disappearing, change, whatever. But he seems to be dying as he gets out of the.
That was a mistake. Him dying instead of disappearing. That's a plot hole right there.
Yeah. So they try to wrap your brain around time travel issues by just having these effects like Marty's hand disappearing and we got to do something before he disappears. Like, oh shit, what do I do? People getting sick, people for like seeing their bodies change, stuff like that. That's where my brain goes, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense.
I think the bigger one at that point could have been the future is changing. And it's also that this whole future is falling apart, like Langolier style.
Like it's some
but
sort
that
of...
might have been too much of a strain on the budget.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're looking at a set design of a play, and the set is falling apart physically, and you're like, that's weird. What's going on? But this is our first experience for most people of time travel in film, and you go, okay, we have to explain that visually in some format, as opposed to snapping your fingers and everything should be the way it should be. So there's lots of different ways to do time travel. Time travel is always a messy subject. And if it's not done simply, or if it's done in a very strict way, you're going to get a lot of questions and a lot of plot holes.
Yeah. But for that, I think these movies do it well enough to not break your immersion and suspense of disbelief.
Yeah, it's a fun show.
They get away with it well enough.
Yeah, it's a fun, simple summer blockbuster film for kids. And I remember it because I was young at the time. I think I watched the third one in my cousin's family room. I can't recall. But it was a fun thing to do. It's like, wow, there's another film, and then we come back the next year, and there's another film, and you just keep having a great time with your cousins. So,
Yeah, and it just goes. These movies, they just go from quest to quest to quest to quest. So you get lots of mini adventures in this thing that tie into each other in each film.
just like Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones and all the weird Goonies and
It's not this one story that the entire movie is dragging out. It's like several little episodes. And the great thing about I remember especially from the third one is the real finale is not fighting the bad guy. It's getting the train to work to push the DeLorean into the future with Marty in it. Doc should have tagged along, but Clara joins the train, and so Doc instead has to save Clara, stays in the past, and Marty gets to the future.
Right.
And it's this long tense scene on the train with even a visual cue with the exploding charges that heat up the boiler that has this the green, yellow, and red smoke in it, and it increases tension. It's a really long scene, but it holds the tension. It gives you emotional pressure. You don't know, and when you watch this the first time, you cannot tell, is Doc and Clara making it to the future with the DeLorean? Are they gonna stay behind? Is it gonna be Doc gets into the DeLorean and Clara stays behind? It's well placed to keep you unsure.
Keeps you guessing.
Yes, it's great.
That's honestly one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema. That entire train sequence.
Yeah, and then even has an epilogue afterwards.
oh,
Which-
okay.
Yeah, that caps off the trilogy perfectly. But to go back to part 2.
Yeah, let's get back to the video.
I don't support that at all anymore. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale absolutely did the best they could under the circumstances, and any less capable writer would have likely done far worse. Those two were not the least bit lazy. They did a great job under circumstances that were simply out of their control. Okay, I swear that's the last one, and I'll leave you to speculate as to what views I've changed and which ones I haven't. One thing I say in the review that I think is just at the core of what I don't particularly care for about this movie is the repetitiveness of everyone re-explaining the plot over and over again. It actually happens 3 times in exactly the same way. And if there's one statement I make in this review that perfectly captures why I don't think this is a good sequel, it is that the whole film is one long excuse for itself. The original Back to the Future and Back to the Future 3 weren't like that. They were stories with a purpose and a direction. They didn't just do themselves until they were done. But I would like to say before we begin that, much like The Lion King, I don't hate this movie. I like watching this. It's fun and entertaining, it's got a good pace. I never had a moment in Back to the Future Part 2 where I'm like, ugh, I wish I wasn't watching this. It's just a good time. So whether you agree with this review or not, and my money is going to be placed firmly on not, I hope you at least enjoy the review. Please keep in mind that I know this is flawed, and hopefully in the re-review I'll be able to express my ideas and feelings better than I did before. Alright guys, enjoy.
Yay!
You know his words will get you farther than the film will ever go. Give him a moment of your time, he'll tell you what's wrong with the show. He knows what's good, what's bad, what's really
Yeah,
good.
remember that
His
scene.
face is just
Yeah,
a sign.
there's some goofy
Say
stuff
hello
here.
to confused Matthew.
All right, now here we
Back
are.
to the Future, Part 2, is one of the worst sequels that's ever been put to film.
Wrong.
I mean, it's awful. I mean, it is bad. I mean, this
You
needs
haven't
to be
seen-
shown in film schools all across the country.
Wow.
He had no idea. He had no idea TLJ would ever be a thing.
No, my.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on, Wisp.
Yeah.
Wisp. He likes TLJ.
What?
he does.
I was subscribed to this guy, and a couple months ago, He was doing, or it was either a couple months or like a year or two ago. I can't remember which. It
It had
was
to be
when Jedi.
Yeah, it had to be
Jedi
a
Fallen Order came
way. It had to be a while ago.
It was when Jedi Fallen Order came out, and he was doing a thing of that, and he and I got into a fucking back and forth about TLJ, and he was justifying every action
Holy crap!
made by Luke, made by
Holy
made by Admiral Hodor.
Now I gotta-
He should join Red Letter Media. Then he will be on good terms with Jay.
I
Bauman.
request this right now. If anyone can find that stream or
God.
whatever where Bears and this doofus go at it about TLJ, please
There was
do
only
it.
there was only like a couple fucking interactions. I'm like,
That is just, dude.
Is
You cannot be trusted in your comprehension of film or story or anything.
Yeah.
If you like TLJ,
is Confused Matthew a cinemaphile or what is he? Is he like a
What?
devil's advocate? Like what is he? What kind of person?
In
Contrarian?
some ways devil's advocate, in some ways contrarian. It's
Well-
like it's semi rare,
Horrible.
Okay,
semi common, but it's like every so often he has that take that like he said in other videos. It's like
he took
it does
apart,
separate from the majority.
He took apart Minority Report because of the way the law works in real world. Like it would be called this, it would be called that, and in Minority Report world, it wouldn't be called that. And he was arguing that they never changed the laws for that, but it's like but they did change the laws. So if you have a law which supersedes another law, that other law is forgotten. So
You don't just because something plays out 50 or 100 years later doesn't mean that all the laws are changed. Like we in Germany, we have laws from the Nazi era still in place and from East Germany, because some of them actually made sense, like traffic laws.
Yeah, so
And
he
stuff like
was
that.
he was getting angry that you were being accused of a precog murder, even though you didn't do anything yet, but you had the thought of it. And it's like you can't prosecute someone for that. It's like, yes, Matthew, in this world they do. That's the kind of
Isn't that what you get in Canada soon?
well,
Where someone can report you for a online hate crime
that's
that you are assumed to be doing in
that's
the future
that has
because
already
you
happened.
seem like it.
That has already happened with one of the person who got the Peace Prize from Alberta. They gave her a Peace Prize last week. She's now in jail because she broke her bail or something like that because she attended a rally in Alberta, and they're scared she's going to attend the rally in Ottawa today. So she's in jail for the next few days for no reason.
She's in jail because she might attend a rally?
No. She's in jail because she did attend a rally in Alberta where she wasn't allowed. Like she posted stuff on her social media. Like she had a bunch of rules she wasn't supposed to do, and she broke one of those things. So now she's in jail. And they kept her in jail, and she's going to keep being in jail for the next few days because of the rally.
What bad thing did she do that she was deprived her right to demonstrate?
I don't even know, because there's so much crap in Canadian Twitter these days, and it's surrounding the Freedom Convoy still, that I don't know who's saying what and what happened and what news report, because there's the CBC involved, there's Rebel Media, there's all these groups, and I'm just like, I can't filter it, so I don't know.
So from what I learned during the last years is that it is totally fine to burn down black businesses. Because that is for Black Lives Matter. That demonstrates that when you burn down black businesses, possibly with people inside, that supports black lives. And if you actually peacefully protest your government, that is terrorism, and requires to freeze your bank accounts and shit.
Thanks, conflation.
Yeah,
Yay!
Canada's a very
Mashing two completely separate situations together to confuse everyone.
Yeah,
thanks.
Canada used to be a pretty free country. Now I don't know what it is anymore because of these federal laws.
Cuba.
It's
just called Cuba.
I don't know. It's
Cuba too.
well, I
It's
mean,
called Cuba.
your PM looks like the fucking cuckold child of Fidel Castro.
well, that's the federal level. Like just this Friday, the provincial Ontario government got rid of the carbon tax in Ontario. So it's like, okay, that's good. You know, we save 5 cents more at the pump, which is better than zero. So there's stuff that's bad and there's stuff that's okay. So I don't know. Canada's a bit weird right now. I think it's weird in every part of the world. Germany especially. The stuff I'm hearing from Germany is like, whoa, what is happening with the energy over there?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah,
It's
so
absolutely
let's not talk about that. Let's get back to some more fun stuff.
Gingerman?
What happened?
Can you just snort it out instead of doing cocaine?
It's
Well,
not
no.
cocaine.
You
it's
can-
just sniffles.
You
Okay.
can snort
Just
whatever you
blow
like.
it out.
Just don't
Just blow
do
it
it
out.
next to the
Nah,
to the microphone.
Nah, it's cocaine.
No, it's not. I'm clean.
Nah.
Now I'm clean.
It's raining. It's been raining all day outside. What do you think it is?
Yeah, it's been raining cocaine. We understand.
Is that a joke on the Biden voicemail that he left his son a few days ago or whatever?
What?
Did you hear that?
Bruh.
You didn't hear that? Oh my god, you got to search
No.
that. It's great. It's fantastic. Oh,
Hey,
Someone put
Hunter,
it in stream memes where I can find it.
okay.
hey, Hunter, you got any of that methamphetamine for me?
It's a 4-year-old voicemail. It's hilarious. Anyway,
Wasn't Biden the guy with the war on drugs?
I think he takes the drugs. I don't think he's on war with it.
Yeah. Why do you think he's so brain dead now?
He needs the drugs to operate. Yeah.
Well, the fact that he's 5 million years old, Ginga, I think that's what's causing his brain.
But I do remember that Kamala Harris was hard on the war on drugs while
Yep.
posting that she herself was doing weed.
Bears, I'm pretty sure a certain lady with the initials of TL is older than Biden. Think you know? I hope you know who I'm talking about.
Anyway.
Theresa Lay?
Anyway, let's get back to
I'll
the
explain
video.
As an example of what not to do in.
Oh, also,
Oh.
Dragonheart 2.
What? Okay.
There are several Dragonheart sequels.
Sure.
Where did
Those
that
are
come
bad.
from?
Those are bad. He's talking about bad sequels.
Oh,
Oh god, yeah, no. This is a silly thing. It's obviously hyperbolic, or
a lot of video game sequels. Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. It's, whatever. This is his opinion.
Oh.
He hates
Looks
the
at
film.
looks at Mass Effect.
Oh god.
Well, Mass Effect was only really god awful, literally in the last 10 minutes, where it just said "fuck you, you don't matter."
No, Ginga, no. The entirety of 3 is terrible, and 2 was
Is
just
it?
nothing. Yes,
Had it not
And
kept
2 is
off
just nothing.
that bad,
Gameplay's solid
people
though.
would be more forgiving and just think like, yeah, okay, that was silly. But with the ending being so bad, everybody looks at it with, oh god, let's just forget about it.
Yeah, EA.
Anyway, let's get back to the video.
a sequel. You might be able to find worse sequels out there if you look really, really
Yeah,
hard.
that's pretty
but
bad.
this one is awful in a very
Really
special
hard?
way. It wasn't just
That's
bad
a
because the film
blockbuster.
sucked. It was bad because it set a bad precedent for other sequels to come.
How?
I wouldn't say that.
How did
No,
it
it
set
was
up
a good
Matrix?
Back
Because
to the Future 2 was a great sequel.
you could argue the way they filmed Back to the Future, because they split into 2 films, the same thing they did with Matrix Reloaded, they split that into 2 films. Okay.
Yeah, but it still stands on its own.
Smud, you're missing something. Back to the Future 2 had Michael J. Fox in drag.
Oh, no.
And who directed the Matrix films?
Oh, you
The Wachowskis.
You mean
There you go.
the Wachowskis?
There you go.
The Wachowskis.
That's the connection.
The Wachowskis are in Back to the Future?
Sure.
Yeah,
No,
the
it's like- it's the fa-
Wachowskis.
It's
Yeah,
that,
the
it's the fact that one of the Wachowskis transitioned.
Yeah, exactly.
Allegedly both.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
because
asking.
yeah, that's
One looks like okay, which is probably an actual dysphoric, and the other one is a barrel man.
Okay, I'm
in a
asking,
dress.
are the
Oh,
Wachowskis...
you mean the fucking 8-foot tall Sasquatch between the two? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
No one
That's just,
ever-
that's just doing it for
Sorry.
the
attention.
Wachowskis, are they involved in Back to the Future at all?
No.
Yeah, they've seen Back to
We
the
just put it back.
Future. They
There you
saw Marty in they saw Michael J. Fox in the dress,
And
they
they
thought, hey, I
transitioned.
could do, I could do that, and then
I do know that production on the second film took a lot of time, and they had a lot of cool new prosthetics that no one else did in
4 years.
Hollywood. So,
Took 4 years for Part 2 to come out.
4? Oh, I thought it was 2. Okay.
Well, Part 1 was 85, Part 2 was 89, Part 3 was 90.
Oh, you mean between the films? I thought production.
Between.
Oh, okay.
Between 1 and 2 was 4 years.
I
it
got you.
took 12,
There's a point about that later I want to make when we get to like the Johnny B. Good scene.
Okay.
Just to like, because it has to do with before we go back to the video, it has to do with a lot of people that came in later and saw these movies. And Matthew being one of them is like, I want to clarify that later when we get to that scene.
Okay, that's cool.
Very special way. It wasn't just bad because the film sucked. It was bad because it set a bad precedent for
No, it
other
didn't.
sequels.
No,
to
it didn't.
come.
Moving on.
Now, no one ever actually told me that if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, but it sounds like a good policy.
No, it was just
so let me
Muslims.
give a quick mention to the one thing they got right in this film. Science fiction, whether it's outer space or time travel, has never given us a view of the future that is in any way desirable. Either robots have taken over,
Star Trek?
Star Trek, fucking
19-
Babylon 5,
Yeah.
Babylon 5.
Thank you.
1989 was the year of TNG, so maybe he didn't watch it yet.
What other good futures are there?
Well, if you read Asimov, if you read all the Culture series, I mean, these are space age worlds where you have no crime, you have no want because they've gone past scarcity. So,
have taken over.
And
or,
Mass Effect as well.
You know what?
sure, yeah, that's fair. But this is when did he record this? Like in 2008? So
2008. So he can know Star Trek.
at the time of 1989, TNG just came out on TV. So
I would
But like,
In 87.
This is,
Maybe
this is his
even
perspective
say-
from 2008, though.
yeah,
in a way, I'd say Stargate is neutral.
yeah. There's an impending threat, but no one knows about it.
Yeah, but it's kind of humanity kind of figures it out. There are a few advanced races that are good that we can ally with. Yeah, it's kind of okay. It's kind of
Yeah.
okay. Farscape is a bit off the rails, but has a positive ending because the factions have just forgotten why they were created. Like the peacekeepers, there's a reason which act very military. It's a military faction. It acts quite fascistic, but and it seems ironically named. But they were actually created in order to just keep the peace between the different races in the galaxy. And at the end, that comes to light again, and the peacekeepers go, that's kind of fun. So Farscape has an ambiguity there.
Well, even with Black Panther, that was a positive view of the future. As crazy as the film was, they had this futuristic ethno world.
Yeah.
What's
the Marvel cinematic, the Marvel universe in general has
but
everything in it.
even that French comic you talked about, the Valerian comic.
Oh yeah, Valerian.
That's pretty big. That's pretty positive. Fifth Element's pretty positive.
Oh yeah. It's kind of like if the 80s just continued. To
Oh
happen.
God, Bill and Ted's. There's a great time travel that's positive. Holy shit, I forgot about that.
Which one?
Bill and Ted's
Bill and
Excellent
Ted.
Adventure.
Oh yeah.
That was like everything's awesome because of music. It's like, yeah, that's cool.
And that's also a time travel story.
Yeah, how would you classify? Oh, it's slipping. Damn. The Orville came out later, but that is similar to Star Trek. Let's work together.
I'm thinking of like the 90s now as like Demolition Man, which is, I guess,
No, that's a dystopian.
stupid
this-
positive.
I mean, Orville is just one gigantic homage to classic Star Trek anyway, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah. But because Star Trek isn't doing Star Trek.
Because we can say what we want about Seth MacFarlane as a writer. It's like, but he put Orville together pretty much, and it was well worth it.
You know, Star Trek.
Yeah.
He knew Star Trek exactly, unlike JJ with his reboot films.
Unlike literally anybody in control of Star Trek currently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Judge Dredd is a negative one. I'd say
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell is a neutral one.
Nah, Judge Dredd is a positive one because you get to punch mutants in the face. Fucking awesome.
Would RoboCop be neutral?
No.
Negative?
No, RoboCop is great because you get free market anti-tank rifles.
Okay, yeah.
I'd buy that for $1.
Goddamn right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's positive science fiction now.
Yeah, like
That is not
even Star Wars has the Empire, but they don't blow up every planet. They just blew up the one they didn't like, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, with the Empire, we have the luxury that they have the habit of biding their time.
Well, they're
Yeah,
stupid.
There's room to breathe
Yeah.
in
Star
terms of the
Wars-
narrative.
In Star Wars, you also can have every society possible. And
No,
it's
true,
not,
true.
It's not this. It's not unlike 40K. It's not this looming death threat over the galaxy at all times.
Yeah, like
No, it's where you're only lucky if you live on an agrarian world or
the
something.
plot for Star Wars
Or
is
if you're
always
or if you're anywhere in the Ultima segmentum, because fuck the Ultima.
well,
Yeah, but the thing is with the Star Wars galaxy is there are a lot of very chill places.
yeah, there's millions and millions of individual species that we don't know anything about. The plots of Star Wars has always been about good versus evil and a death planet busting machine. And it's like, okay, yeah, but how many planets do blow up outside of Episode 7 where they just blow up
And
a
you
whole bunch
can-
at once?
You can literally live on some nice backwater world and completely ignore or ever hear about any of this Republic versus Empire Sith bullshit ever
much.
happening
Yeah.
in thousands of years. It's an okay galaxy.
There are plenty of other books out there that are positive. He's just referring to, I guess, his own general opinion about future. And Gene Roddenberry has always been Mr. Positive, and Asimov in general. Like, there's conflicts in all these big stories, but for the most part, they're pretty well, like, everyone just understands space is really dangerous and big, so you don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah, and you get a lot of in anime you get a lot of more examples than Ghost in the Shell.
Alrighty, anyway.
Yeah,
It's pretty much always been that. We're apparently just screwed on the whole robot thing in the future.
No.
But Back to the Future Part 2 dispenses with this tired trend and gives us a view of the future we might actually want to live in. The setting of Hill Valley 2015 is one of the most colorful and vibrant views of the future I've ever seen, if not the most. The philosophy of the more things change, the more they stay the same is a lot more believable than in the future everything will be chrome and everyone will wear the same drab thing. And even though the technologies of this imagined era...
No, Blade Runner is just a little bit run down and sad because it's raining all the time. It's the only reason.
And there's
Yeah.
all kinds of...
Otherwise it is the Back to the Future.
Yeah, you've got Japanese beer all over the place and Chinese influence because of population overgrowth. And
Was Blade Runner set in Seattle? That why it was raining all the time?
Well, it was Detroit?
Was it?
He was in a bunch of places, even in outer
have
space. So
No idea, actually. Yeah, Blade Runner is just... Look, Blade Runner is mostly happens at what looks like night.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
If that was in the day, it would look similar to this here.
Yeah. So Los Angeles, there's the space station, there's another location I can't remember because they go to like further places outside the Earth. So everyone should be reading one of those books or not Cyberpunk. I can't remember the name, the original.
Neuromancer?
Neuromancer, thank you. There you go.
Beautiful. Read Neuromancer.
There you go.
The end fizzles a bit, but that's okay.
That's what I was talking about. Neuromancer. I was like, what? Blade Runner?
The fucking read aloud the intro. Read it aloud. It is so fun.
Okay.
seem a tad far-fetched or even a little pointless, there is something at the core of this setting that was almost believable. So there is a positive note to which we can open this commentary. The setting of 2015 was wonderful. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for anything that actually happened there. The film opens to Marty, Doc, and Jennifer in the year 2015. The three of them begin discussing where they are and how they got there when Jennifer starts asking too many questions. Doc then flashes this thing in her eyes and makes her fall asleep.
Yeah, the entire problem, why? Because the initial quest of Back to the Future 2 is get to the future and save Marty's kid from being framed for a robbery. And it is solved by Marty antagonizing the gang enough that they wreck the courthouse, which gets them arrested even before the robbery happens. And technically, the movie would be over by then. because Doc Brown even throws away the almanac that Marty picked up for his little millionaire scheme. However, because the girl was still in an alley and got brought away by the police, everything else screwed up and happened and could happen. So technically, the whole problem of Back to the Future 2 is bringing the girl along. And even though she was unconscious, she's the reason everything got screwed up. So even when the woman is unconscious, she screws everything up. Don't bring women along to your guy adventure.
And even then, this is a consequence of the fact that Back to the Future 1 was supposed to be just the one movie and that's it. But because it was so popular, the studio decided to order at least 1 or 2 more movies just to rake in the dough.
That's okay, but I'm just saying, if you take this is how things happen. The moral of the story is don't bring the girl along.
And that's pretty much
in the
all she does.
Yeah, there was really no way around it, though. Unfortunately, because corporations are greedy.
That's okay.
No, I know it's okay. I'm just saying that's why it happened.
Are you more autistic than I that you don't get the joke?
Ouch!
Got him.
Wait.
Damn.
All right. Let's go.
Got him!
Does for the rest of the film. Sleeps. Now, if you watch the commentary on the excellent DVD box set they released, you'll hear Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale say that when they first made Back to the Future, they never dreamed in a million years that they were ever going to make a sequel. If they did have such foreknowledge, they never would have put Jennifer in the car at the end of the film. This became a big obstacle for them to overcome in the writing process because they simply didn't know what the hell to do with her. But while I can appreciate their dilemma, I cannot help but think that a good writer should have been able to turn this minus into a plus somehow. A good writer should have been able to incorporate this character into their story in some relevant way.
Okay,
I'm not saying that Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale...
Okay, so we have the inciting incident, which comes from the end of the first film. It's like they continue the plot. Then that gets resolved, but then you have a new complication as a result of that, and that's totally normal. So she could just be this factor, this variable that causes these other stream of events to occur that they have to then solve. So they have to clean up after themselves, or else the timeline gets screwed up again. That's pretty normal in pretty much all timeline scenarios where it's, oh yeah, go back in time and fix that, but that causes a bunch of other problems. So whether it's a person or an event or an object or a thing, it doesn't really matter. And even in this film, we see it with the almanac going back in time and causing Biff to have a completely different lifestyle. So yeah, there's other problems that arise, and that's fine. You don't have to have this overarching plot of, oh, I got to save my future kid from the law. It's like, now I got to prevent the entire city from going in an entirely different direction as a result of leaving your DeLorean open. You know, it's like, whoops. So that's fair. You could do that. I don't see a problem with that. And whether she's just a plot device or not a Mary Sue, if she's a sacrificial lamb, you have to go save her from the prison. Like, there's all kinds of scenarios that you could have done. It depends. It's up to you. But no, she served her role. That's fine.
Yeah, and then they move her out of the way. That's okay.
Yeah, they made it work.
Yeah, and it's okay because then you have new problem. Movie continues. Great, and it's solely a product of neglect.
In credit words due, he said, like he said in the intro, yeah, it's like he did eventually realize, yeah, there was no other way it could have worked, but it still worked. Okay. He did have that revelation at the end of the day. It's like, yeah.
Are bad writers. Far, far from it. It just seems to me that they succumbed to a defeatist laziness and lack of creativity in this aspect, and I really have to wonder just how many ideas they actually bounced off the wall before they said, screw it, let's just knock her out for the whole picture. So anyway, after Jennifer has been doped up and stuck in the corner, we learn what has to be done about Marty's kids. His son, who in 2015 is the same age as Marty, apparently gets duped by gang members into doing something illegal, and he gets 10 years in the state penitentiary. But that's not all. Soon after, Marty's daughter tries to break him out of the penitentiary, and she gets put away for 20 years. And that... well, I'll come back to that later in the review. So Marty poses as his own son and begins his mission of telling Griff no. He enters the Cafe 80s and orders a Pepsi when he encounters the really, really old version of Biff from 1985. Now, this old Biff really confused me the first time I saw this film. He's
Why?
cranky, crabby, and has a fist at the end of his cane, which I actually...
Yeah, he has that and he has that fist because he's old.
Confused Matthew. Old people are cranky and crotchety.
And they use walking aids.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
part of life.
And having the fist because he did this as a kid, knocking on Marty's head or his father's head, and now he's doing it with a cane as an aid. He expresses his personality in getting exactly this cane. This cane represents who he is.
I would say
Great
let
pop.
him,
I love it. I love this.
I would say let him finish his point on old Biff just so that I can give my response.
Sure.
thought was really... But this is supposed to be the older version of the spineless Biff from the changed 1985, not the bully Biff that pushed everyone around in the other 1985. Shouldn't this old Biff be mild-mannered and meek? I don't know, I guess the writers wanted to give us the character that we most remember from the first film, and maybe the mild Biff just got crankier over the years. I get pretty cranky too if I was waxing cars my whole life, so...
Yeah, and then you get an idiotic son.
Yeah, hold on.
So who knows?
Or grandson.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's like the way it's like that one blurb he says right at the end there, it's like, yeah, he just got, that's the implication. He just got resentful and cranky over the years because of the way the alternate history played out, like getting knocked out by George McFly and then having to live with that through this part of his life right here all the way to old age. Yeah, that would kind of leave someone like Biff just like resentful and utterly bitter with how life dealt him a bad hand.
Yeah, eventually that can come through again.
Yeah.
And you see, and then you see that the other family is successful and everything, and you're just still doing this shit.
Exactly.
Or what you see as shit.
It's not that far of a stretch, but it's not that big. It's not a huge characterization mishap. It's like, oh, this is impossible. It's like, well, it's the same guy.
Yeah, it's like the point earlier. It's like people just get crankier over the years, and that's on top of what he specifically went through by the time the altered history kicked in.
Yeah, imagine you reflect on your life eventually, and then you notice, oh shit, I should have kept my spine up, and then you get this son or grandson that is just like you were.
And then you buy a really cool cane, which old people like doing. Believe it or not.
Yeah, and the thing is, all these ancestors of Biff, they all make this. They're all the same dump, and they all get.
We are losing Wisp. Wisp is
Dude,
gone silent.
I can only assume the point there is that, yeah, this whole way of thinking, way of acting, pretty much, and especially we see in part 3, as far back as Buford Tannen, it just runs in the family, and there's pretty much historically no way around that for this bloodline. They're always going to get screwed over by someone. They're always going to take a few steps too far, and they're going to end up getting their comeuppance and end up getting screwed over in the end.
Yeah. I hate manure.
It happened with Biff in the first movie. It happens with Griff here in the second movie, and especially with Buford in the third movie, which, for all we know, Buford got executed after what he did in part 3.
All right.
So yeah, basically it runs in the family. Yeah, the Tannins are really never going to learn their lesson. And like Tyler Preston said in the chat, yeah, that history repeats itself. Absolutely.
Hello?
Having said...
Hey.
Yeah, you're whack.
Oh god, I have no idea what happened. the thing is, all of Biff's ancestors, they have the same tics. They're the same kind of dump. They get idioms wrong, and I think my computer is acting up again. So they get idioms wrong, and old Biff here corrects his younger self, and because over the years he actually got his wits together, and it gets annoyed of how fucking dense his younger self is, and he corrects his younger self about getting idioms wrong because he makes you sound like an idiot. And this is he sees his own son, grandson, whatever.
Yeah.
I forgot. And sees this guy's so dumb. Was I like that? Oh god, that's horrible. And he probably tried to beat some sense into him, and it never stuck because he's just dumb.
The tannins are just that dense.
Yeah, and I can fully see that frustrated him, and maybe got all that resentment back out.
Yeah, and this whole thing does make sense because Biff is pretty much the only one in the Tannen family that was able to finally get their shit together and actually do something about it. Unfortunately, it got erased over a second time.
Alrighty. Let's go.
Said that, though, it really felt untrue to the idea of Biff's character. But you know what? Biff is a big problem in this film, so I'll reserve my serious criticisms for later. So anyway, enter Griff, who encounters the real Marty Jr. and bullies him into saying yes to whatever it is that gets him in trouble. But soon after, Marty switches place with him and tells Griff no. And at this point, mission accomplished. Marty did what he had to do, and now he can just leave. And that's what happened until Griff called him a chicken. Then Marty stops, turns around, and tries to fight him. Now, this is confusing me. Why does Marty care what this kid from the future, who is not going to exist when he gets back to 1985, is saying about him?
This isn't bad writing. This is a legitimate character flaw that benefits the story.
This is pretty logical with what we understand of Marty's character. We saw it in the first film. He does not like being called a scaredy cat or scared in general, so he will man up and do whatever he needs to do. And it's not him trying to act like his future son. It's just him being himself. So
that's his actual arc through the movies.
That's his character. Yeah, exactly.
And also, he has the whole thing of like, listen, I don't want to be called a chicken, and I also don't want my son to be called that either.
Yeah, and that's kind of what he sort of had to teach his dad when he went back in time in the first film, and that's the ongoing thing. It's like
that's the McFly flaw.
Yeah, that's
that goes
exactly.
The family.
It's the same argument he just made. He didn't understand, and now he doesn't understand this with the McFly family, which is weird.
Well, as most people know, this was a setup for the third film where Marty overcomes this inexplicable compulsion out of nowhere to fly off the handle whenever anyone calls him a name.
Not out of nowhere.
Now, whether this works in the third film
Did he say he overcomes it out of nowhere? Because that's not the case.
Yeah, he always faces it.
The entire arc is his oldest ancestor got killed because of this stupid thing. That's what the farmers told him. His farmer ancestors, that a relative of theirs got killed because I don't remember, got into a fight with someone, and that because he was called the old timey word for chicken,
yellow belly.
Yeah, and he got talked himself into the duel by being teased all the time with being called a chicken. He got himself into an actual cowboy high noon western duel where you can get shot and killed. And I think that is the thing that made him wake up, that, yeah, I'm being called a chicken, but this guy wants to shoot me. Huh. Damn. What's more important? I think being a chicken is fine if that means I'm alive. And that is the whole thing that he then remembers, because his girlfriend already remembers from the second movie that Marty got his spine injured from doing that race and crashing into the Rolls Royce. But now changed Marty from going through the western part, the third movie, has grown up enough that he won't be provoked by being called a chicken anymore. So he doesn't get into the race, so he doesn't crash into Rolls-Royce, so his spine is not injured, so the future is changed.
All right. Cool.
Arguable, but it doesn't work in this one. It doesn't make any sense and is just right out of their ass. So obviously a fight ensues, and then we get into a chase scene. And what does this chase scene remind us of? Oh yeah, it's kind of like the classic scene in the first film. And by kind of like, I mean exactly like. It's recycled right from the first Back to the Future, and that really bothers me. When
Why?
Zemeckis and Gale wrote this scene, they didn't have it being a classic scene in mind. It naturally became a classic scene because it was so well written and memorable. That's how classic scenes happen. They become classics because they are so well done they become timeless. They do not become classic with repetition. And this recycled scene cheapens the experience.
No. It doesn't cheapen it.
It's not recycled. It's not just repeated. It has things added to it. It has different plot reasons. This is a homage, and it tells you also that history repeats itself. And that is the thing that goes through the movie for both these families, the Tennants and the McFlys. History repeats itself because you people have the same flaws and you don't overcome them.
This is...
The Tennants are idiots, and the McFlys
Yeah, this is...
are easily manipulated if you call them chickens.
Yeah, this is a pretty common theme in most time travel stories, whether it's, this is happening in the past as well as the future or whatever. You're going to have to deal with the realization that the protagonist does or does not recognize that. Like, this is a pattern. And the audience can, and if the audience does, then what's the value of this scene? Is the scene made worse? Is it made better? Like, you have to be a cognizant writer when you do this scene. All Matthew is saying is like, this is redundant. It's like, yes, it's noticeable.
That's the point here, because Georgios Rex here put it best. The parallels between the eras is a theme. It's not about member berries.
I think so, especially in a time traveling film. Or any time travel scenario where you go back in time.
This, at the same time, is something that he praised when it was about the setting, where everything is like now, but a little bit different.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that he's making that, the setting looks believable and happy. It's like, well, the scenarios are believable and happy too. It's the same character, Matthew. He's doing the same. He's running away in the same fashion on a skateboard. Only the skateboard now is a hoverboard and he's in the future. That's bad, apparently. Even though it makes perfect sense with the character and the setting. I guess
that he's doing it not himself, but for his future son.
Yeah, he dislikes the scene because he likes the first movie so much, and the second film is doing the same scenario. And that's like, this is bad. You're like, why? It's redundant. Why is that bad? That's like saying...
And the good thing is, this is just the first setup of the movie. This is the first quest. After which, as I said before, technically the movie could be over if you wouldn't have this chaos element of the girlfriend being there.
Okay, yeah, but this is like taking any character from any story where they have a sequel and they do the same thing they did in the previous story. It's like, okay,
yeah, it's just a prologue here.
Well, it's the future technically, so it's the same thing in the future. But take, like, I don't know, God of War. Like, God of War, he kills gods, right? In the first game. Then he does this. Then he kills the Titans in the second game. And then he kills Zeus. And like, he's killing everyone. It's like, this is so redundant. It's like, that's what Kratos does. That's his character. That's his goal. He wants to be
free from the manipulations of the gods. So after he's killed everyone, he moves to another country full of gods. Who are then
kills those.
Pissed that oh shit, this guy who killed the Greek pantheon is here. Fuck.
Yeah. He's going to go to Japan. I got to kill these guys now. Oh, my God.
At least he'll have a lot to do because they have thousands of them.
Yeah, go to India. There's all kinds of gods there.
Okay.
I can't wait for Zeus or Kratos to square up against Jesus and for Jesus to kick the shit out of him.
Ancient Rome. He's just like, what the fuck?
No, Jesus can fight. Like, if comic books have taught me anything, Jesus knows how to whoop major fucking ass.
Wouldn't he fight like Palpatine? Just standing there
Oh,
and
yeah,
magically dodging things?
You pick up tables.
No. There was I think it was an Image comic called The Goddessy. The Greek pantheon came down and were laughing at Jesus for being crucified for humanity's sins, and Jesus like pulled himself off the cross and kicked all of their asses for laughing at him. It was fucking amazing. I loved it.
Okay, so send me that shit. That sounds funny. But what I would imagine Jesus would be fighting would more be like some Hindu god who's just standing there and just snipping his finger or poking you with his forefinger, and that pushes you like Dragon Ball style with these superpowered guys that just stand there and just
it's very different.
Like manipulating the elements and shit.
Well,
just Asura, like Asura fighting against Jesus is like fighting against Chakravartin.
Well, compared to Record of Ragnarok, where they just throw all these gods and goddesses together on a pantheon of some giant crazy death match, it's like, okay, they're people and they're doing peopleish behaviors, but they're over extravagant magical powers and this and that. So Hades fighting with a spear and some Japanese samurai going crazy maneuvers and whatever. So anyway, weird point from Matthew there. It's redundant, therefore bad. It's like, no, this is the character, and the scenario is the same. So
it does enhance it. So after this hoverboard incident, we learn that their plan worked. Marty's kids are fine. Marty catches up with Doc, but before he does, he gets the idea to bring back a sports almanac in order to exploit future knowledge and make money betting on events. Later on, however, Doc finds out about it, chastises him, and throws the thing in the trash. So now they're both ready to go home. But there's a problem. Jennifer was found by the...
Oh yeah, that was the shirt with the trains on them.
Okay.
Then, bloop. Come. Yeah.
Later on, however...
See? Train... Oh, there's also horses.
Trucks, trains, whatever.
This is the... No, there are no trucks. It's just the big train. So it's trains and horses. This is foreshadowing the ending of the third movie, or that was planned for the second.
Well, the way that they cut it, exactly. So
and that's what I mean. This is it's not member berries. It's reflections and foreshadowing.
All right.
You have this throughout this entire thing. This is great.
Doc finds out about it, chastises him, and throws the thing in the trash. So now they're both ready to go home. But there's a problem. Jennifer was found by the police, and they take her to future Marty's house thinking she's the Jennifer of the future. When they discover this, Doc then explains the consequences of what will happen if Jennifer encounters her future self. Either seeing her future self will send her into shock and she will simply pass out, or it will create a temporal paradox that will unravel the fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe. So basically, it's going to be one of two things. Either it's not going to matter at all, or it's going to be the most ridiculous consequence you can possibly think of.
Yeah, but
now, maybe that works as a gag for about 2 minutes, but it's also so ludicrous that it makes it really hard to take this film seriously.
Okay, so this is
that's why it's a gag.
This is a common thing. I remember we talked about the Higgs boson a few years ago when they said, "Oh, we're making a miniature black hole or not." Like, we don't know. It's like, okay, I mean, that's a thing that theoretical physicists talk about all the time. Like,
because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, so you have a crazy...
Being scared of the absolute apocalypse, take that into account.
Yeah, you have
because what did they fear before they fired the first nuclear bomb? They feared that it might set the whole atmosphere on fire.
Yeah, so you have...
No, it didn't.
So you have a crazy scientist who invented a time machine, and he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no clue. This could happen, or that could happen. We've never done this before. That's a fair statement to say. This could cause a huge physical issue.
Yeah, and that is why when science makes some doomsday scenario that the world is going to end, you can listen to that, but don't take it at face value.
Especially in fiction, because in fiction,
we have doomsday prophets right now. that are telling us that we need to change our laws and behaviors and massively cripple ourselves because the world is going to end.
No. I'm not saying
money to fight the sun. Yes, that.
No, I'm not saying we don't have that right now. We absolutely do. But I mean specifically in fiction, that the way people write this, most of the time, it's a safe bet that the worst case scenario is not going to happen.
Of most movies,
most of the
worst case scenario is going to happen, and we need to avert it.
All right. Here's
like asteroids crashing into the Earth, so we need to fly up there and drill a hole into it.
Well, I misspoke. I mean specifically with time travel. Most of the time, things just play out.
Okay.
All right. Here's Dwayne the Cock Johnson. Thank you, sir. The next God of War should be about Kratos fighting low-tier god. He has to fight back against LTG mental attacks. He keeps yelling, "You should lil yourself NAO at Kratos in order to gaslight him into doing it."
Kill.
You know what? It's like, it might be a meme at this point. It might be a meme for all I know at this point. But I don't know if you guys have heard the whole theory that because of God of War 2 and the time travel there, that everything loops back around. That maybe the Kratos that died on the floor, that created a new timeline, and the Kratos that died is still out there somewhere.
Nah.
I'm just like they can. It can work. It's like there's a small chance, but it can.
Go
I'm just
away.
like, they're not going to do it, but
Go away now.
They already rebooted the soft reboot of God of War. I don't know if they're going to do it again. So.
no, I'm not. I don't mean soft reboot again. I mean just bring back that old Kratos, just as the consequences of what Kratos has done in his life.
Consequences will never be the same.
You know, the whole unforeseen consequences from Half-Life, that kind of thing.
Kratos' real-life consequences?
Like, I mean, we know for a fact that he did change the timeline after he killed the Fates. So who's to say that when?
You don't know Half-Life real-life consequences.
All right. Here's...
Oh, that like YouTube poop thing. Yeah, I do.
Oh,
I've seen it once.
Anyway, here's Jerry Reinfeld. Hey, Jerry. Guys, we need to ask ourselves, who is a more benevolent figure in our society? Is it Jesus Christ with every miracle he performed and his sacrifice for the sins of man? Or is the man in charge of hiding Yoko Ono's audio equipment?
What?
How do we know they're not the same? How do we know they're not the same person?
I don't even know what he's talking about.
Never heard Yoko Ono sing.
Good.
No.
No, Smud, we got something to queue up after the video's done.
Good Lord.
What, Yoko Ono's?
You don't want to hear that.
No, I feel like I don't.
Nope, we're gonna.
Oh, no.
Anyway, let's keep going.
I screwed myself over.
And we have to take it at least somewhat seriously in order for us to care about what's going on. I mean, was anyone watching this film really concerned that the universe was going to be destroyed?
Yeah,
I sure wasn't.
Be.
I mean, if you're going to raise the stakes that high... Anyway, you get my point. Moving on.
No.
So this is an argument of ignorance, because this is a common theme in particle physics and theoretical physics, where anything could happen. So it's up to the audience to educate themselves. It's not necessarily the movies or the story's fault when they're talking about hypotheticals. Because it's like, yeah, that's a crazy hypothetical, dude. What's the probability of that? I have no idea. I can't figure that out. It's just blah, blah, blah. You're like, okay, but is that even believable? If you know anything about the CERN or particle accelerator or all these God particles running around, it's like, yep, this is a theory that some people have about how the universe works.
That is true.
If the probability is 0.000001, that doesn't mean it won't happen. It's just a very slim chance that it could. And if it does, if we are in the universe where it does actually work like that, or that event does happen, we're screwed. Just like we're screwed if a giant what's it called in English? Gamma flash, gamma lightning hits our solar system, we're just dead. All biological life is just instantly gone.
And if that is an actual plot point, then the story has to facilitate that theoretical probability, and then you'll get real scientists looking at the film saying, well, that's probably not that's not the actual equation, but they're doing something like that, and that's what you do in science fiction. You take an existing theory like the standard model or what would happen you get to the event horizon of a black hole, and you do your own take on that, which is believable enough. That's why some people did not like, what was that film with it's all about love, the when you get past the event horizon, it's trying to feed the future of humanity by going to another planet. And oh God, what the hell was that? I'm trying to remember the name, but Matthew McConaughey was in it. He was a pilot of some spaceship, and it was just like, what the hell are they talking about? Like black holes and whatever. Anyway, that's
Wing
where.
Commander?
Sorry?
Wing Commander?
No. This is
Just guessing now.
yeah, no, it's a pretty box office ish style science fiction flick about trying to feed the future of humanity. So they go into space and find a planet that can do it, and they encounter a black hole, and blah blah blah. All this wanky hijinks happens. It's the power of love. Interstellar. Thank you, Gorgeous Rex. There's the film.
Oh God! Fuck off.
Yeah. So that is it could have used a little more hard science fiction than
It pretended a lot to be that.
for the most of the film, and then you get to the end, you're like, whoa, what? So
Yeah. Anyway, for this movie here, as we learned from the first movie, yes, space-time continuum things seem to be capable through this time travel stuff, so maybe we should be careful. By the end of the third movie, Doc Brown seems to have figured out, it's fine. Because the DeLorean is his first experiment. These are all the time jumps we see. These are the first and only time jumps Doc Brown ever manages to perform.
At least
This
canonically.
Yeah. And so he doesn't know. It could just cause massive damage. Maybe it doesn't. How do interactions with time work? We don't know. But that's why we do experiments and why we get random data, like the girl actually running into herself. Okay. The universe didn't explode. That's a good thing.
Yes.
That's a good
It
thing.
is.
The movie can continue. Great.
Yep.
alrighty, let's keep going.
Welcome to part 2. So Jennifer finally wakes up and wanders around her future house. Now, there are a couple of pretty good jokes here and there, like them getting married in the Chapel O' Love or Marty Jr. watching the Atrocity Channel, but for the most part, this scene is entirely exposition. The only thing that really actually happens in this scene is that Jennifer learns the future Marty is a wash-up. The problem is, prelude and exposition is not story, and whatever story they're trying to tell us in this...
What do you mean exposition? How is it not part of a story?
That got me. That always got me. I'm just like, what?
Prelude?
This is setup.
Yeah, this is exposition connected with plot, which is a great way of delivering plot.
Yes.
You give it extra bits and pieces to fill in the blanks of where the setting is and the character. This is a really weird scene because I remember the dehydrated pizza, and you press a button on the Black & Decker, and boom, instant pizza.
No, I've wanted that so badly all my life ever since I saw this movie for the first time.
You know what? I remember in the 90s they came out with microwavable milkshakes. And I was like, what the hell is that?
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's so.
That's a real
But
thing.
no. Yeah, but no, this scene is here mainly, obviously, it's exposition connected with plot. And this scene is here just to show, they were successful in changing the future of these people in a way, leading into another separate problem. Yeah, the consequences of time travel. That's what this scene is showing in its entirety.
Yeah, and within this, 5-10 minutes, whatever, this thing, you learn all kinds of things about the future. You see the scene with Marty and the guy on the TV who's doing the bad deal, and he loses his job within a minute because he did the transaction. He's like, oh my God, you're fired! And I'm like, what?
And it comes out of every printer in the house.
Yeah, it's funny.
How did you do that? And here's the dystopian part, by the way. Can we get it? Yeah, here. Because this TV, for your video phone, doesn't just show you who's calling, but it shows you tons of private data, not just age and birthday, but it also lists all the social media crap that people put on nowadays for free, like children, their names, their ages, and and what his likes and dislikes.
Yeah, it's
all of this super private stuff. This is dystopian. This is not a happy future.
It's an interesting take because they went the girl. She has those glasses and they're on her neck, and
that's like a VR thing.
A VR phone call for the house.
She just pulls it down later.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, Dad, the call's for you, and it's like, cool. He goes into the family room, takes the call. So they got some things in their own weird 80s world, as opposed to thinking, well, wouldn't everyone just have their own phone, mobile? And never thought that far ahead. But that's kind of cool. That's their own take on the future. I love that kind of stuff.
I mean, for all we know, they do. They're just at the house. They just use the living room for that shit anyway. I'm just like, eh. Yeah. That's just one of those things that's left up in the air.
Oh yeah,
with the benefit of hindsight.
The crazy. What is that chandelier with fruit that comes down? You're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
like personal self-caring hydroponic garden in the ceiling.
Yeah,
that's great.
That was awesome.
You always have a food source.
The self-tying shoes, which some companies actually did end up starting to make.
The self-drying clothing. It's awesome. Awesome, great, cool stuff.
Yeah, but also your boss just casually hacking into your phone line and your printers. That's kind of scary.
Faxing you.
The darker side of the whole.
That was so goofy.
Make everything known thing.
Like like you see old Marty McFly. This kind of looks like a caricature of Marty. That's the point. So he's kind of goofy. And then he's like, I don't know, Needles. I don't think it's a good idea. It's illegal. Blah blah blah. And then like 30 seconds later, you're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Like, what is going on?
Unfortunately, that's one of the many things this movie got right. The quickness of social media and how things can spread around so quickly and ruin you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but that was not a social media thing. That was his boss hacking into his phone line and so.
No. I know. No, I know. I'm just saying that it ended up being right, but with social media, something different.
What the scene also did is that it was a moment for Marty's girlfriend to see how Marty is riled up by this being called chicken into doing something really dumb that got him fired, and that that she sees it happen here. She's probably seen it before as well, and I think she might have overheard the conversation where he got crippled because of it, by slamming into the Rolls Royce. And that scene is that is the final scene of the third movie, because that doesn't happen. The future has been changed.
Yeah.
Or not the final scene, but we're very close to it.
Yeah, close, yeah. And then the whole thing with Marty being called chickens, like, we literally saw that, like, a few scenes ago with our Marty, succumbing to that from Griff.
Which is great. Which is good.
That's set up as a link all the way to the future self, where, that's still a problem.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way of showcasing, well, not necessarily in time travel, but in general, that you see this problem with the character, a flaw in the character that caused him to behave a certain way. The audience is aware of that. The character's not aware of it until much later on in his development. And because the stories are so interconnected, as a result, it was cut into 3 films. Voila, it's resolved in the 3rd film. That is good storytelling, even if it took an extra hour or 2 to get there. That's what we want in films, and they don't make them like that anymore, apparently. So I don't know why. It's sad, but that's what we got. Anyway.
This movie just looks like they had so much fun writing it.
Yeah,
so many ideas.
Oh god!
Despite essentially being despite being backed into a corner, they still ended up coming out with a pretty decent movie.
Yeah, and by the way, the scene here where Michael J. Fox plays his daughter as well, that's just done because this is a movie where the main actors play several roles at the same time, and this is one of these peak moments where let's see how much we can get on one screen.
And they made it work. They made it work very much. It's like it's
unlike a certain
seamless.
Eddie Murphy movie.
Even sorry to interrupt, but it's like even just over 30 years later, it's still pretty much seamless. Like maybe you can notice things here and there, but in terms of how in terms of the presentation, it's pretty solid even to this day.
Yeah, even
like
how they
Marty-
hide the hoverboard floating, how it's held up. It's greatly hidden. You don't if you're not looking at a movie with the eyes of, well, how did they do that and how did they do this? You don't notice it. And even when you look, you just see, okay, here it's just held into the frame from the outside. Here it's hidden under the water. Here it's hidden behind a little bushel of grass.
Yeah, and it's so good. Like they said, the makeup took like 4 hours. Like that's amazing. If they could make Michael J. Fox look like a younger version, female version of himself, it's brilliant. It's amazing.
I mean, the makeup team did such a good job to the point that back during the making of the first movie, it's like they were doing a checkup on the actors, and Leah Thompson had her present 1985 makeup on her from like early in the movie. And it's like, oh, she's in surprisingly good condition for her age, meaning that that the makeup team did a damn good job convincing someone that didn't know jack shit that she was actually younger than she looked.
All right,
they did a damn
Also,
good job.
I like how old Marty in this still looks like Bill Burr. With hair.
True. No, my thing is that like there is a. It's not much, but there's a little bit of a resemblance to the real life Michael J. Fox in the actual 2015. A little bit, not much, but it's. I mean, obviously, in real life, Michael J. Fox looked better. He still had his full hair with all its color, but still,
all right,
it was close.
I am just so glad this movie was made back then and not nowadays, because so many practical effects, so amazing.
All right, here's
all of it.
John,
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
John Doe,
agreed.
The Average Joe. Thanks for the one. Question regarding Doc Brown. Do you think there is an issue not having old Doc in part 3? Remember helping Marty go to the Wild West and the information involved? Or did the time stream not catch up? That's an aspect
what do you mean?
Confuses me on.
What do you mean old Doc? Like the present day Doc?
I'm not sure.
I don't get that, because
Doc in the Wild West did not have any effect on the future.
I mean, you could say, yeah.
All
but
he did was making horseshoes for people.
Yeah, that
doesn't have that big of an effect.
Yeah, and just being in one historical photo, that's it. Yeah, you could say it's like that. You could see that as an issue because it had no effect. But I'm just like, the movie was just so good that you really didn't notice.
Yeah, I think he was involved in building the clock of the clock tower initially.
I think so.
And that's an interesting thing, because if
that's
you look
a nice
at it as a whole,
Yeah.
it looks like it's sometimes it's not clear whether things of future time travels already affected parts of the movie that we're watching in at the present.
I mean, if he did
Not
help
always
with,
sure. Some things seem to change. Some things seem to have happened already, and the whole past thing. There's you can ask the question of, well, how could beloved Clara be engraved on Doc Brown's gravestone when she had when her horses had carried her to her death in the gulch that was named after her before they met.
I mean, she died in the gulch because Doc wasn't there originally, but then when he was there, he saved her regardless.
Yeah, but that's the point. Look, that's the point. He saved her from falling into the gulch because he was checking out the unfinished railroad bridge with Marty. That's where they came across her. However, on his gravestone in 55, Clara was already mentioned as having been in love with him. So he must have met her in some way in the past, and then she must have gotten into the gulch anyway. Or there's another possibility that Marty being in 55 with Doc Brown, already he brought the knowledge of a future, or of the knowledge of a future where his classmates all knew of the gulch where the teacher fell into, where they all wished that teachers they didn't like would fall into.
Yeah, Clayton Ravine, yeah.
Brought that to 55, where he could say that, but the past had already been changed, where she wouldn't fall into the gulch. But he now had memories of a future that wouldn't exist. So that could be an explanation. This is the problem with time travel stuff. Some things can make sense, some things you can try to explain, but you have to fish around, and some things just don't make sense.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell with this movie. We would need to really sit down and take him apart.
I mean that ultimately just proves how good the movie actually is, because it isn't until now that someone made it that kind of connection.
Well, most of these stories are not that well thought out with time travel because they're not written with a hard science fiction background or understanding causality. So I don't expect them to. So I don't treat it as a sci-fi-ish world. It's more or less a fun summer blockbuster. Don't think about it too much because it's there's a lot of goofy elements, and it's not about those elements. It's about the fun adventure along the way. And the characters are solid enough to follow that you could like it just for that.
The friends we meet along the way.
Maybe the real time travel was the friends we made along the way. Yeah.
Or the family members you didn't kill. Yeah.
Georgius Rex says that Doc met her at the station, so she didn't take the coach before Marty arrived. The mayor asked Doc to meet Clara, and he would have been there if it weren't for Marty.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Then still the question is, why did she fall into the gulch? So that must have then happened after his death.
Anyway, that's the third film, which we're not talking about. So let's get to the back.
If it's after his death, you can just chalk it up to Buford sabotaging her carriage.
Yeah, so something else.
Right.
Yeah, like you can think of a whole bunch of possibilities, but the point is there's a bit of a jumble there.
Okay.
Otherwise,
let's keep going.
Exposition. The only thing that really actually happens in this scene is that Jennifer learns the future Marty is a wash-up. The problem is, prelude and exposition is not story, and whatever story they're trying to tell us in this film just seem to be put on hold during this scene. Now, since we're finally on the subject of this scene, let me go back to Marty's daughter real quick. As I said earlier, we learned that when Marty's son was put in prison, his daughter tried to break him out, and she got 20 years. But when we finally see this girl, well, I mean, look at her. This is the most apathetic, normal teenage kid you've ever seen in your life. This is not the kind of person that is going to break anyone out of prison.
If she's no.
People,
if she's the quiet one, you should be careful.
Yes, like people can seem like that. Like, but when it comes to specific things, like, I don't know, your family member getting imprisoned because they were bullied by somebody.
There are very nice and sweet people, seemingly, who are absolute manipulative, horrible psychopaths who will walk over your corpse if they think it benefits them or if they think you're an obstacle.
Yes.
People are not necessarily what they seem. And the quiet one in the background that seems unremarkable might be the one having the most courage and being able to come up with the best plan.
Right. So
even though it can go wrong.
So what Matthew did
is not necessarily the one that works.
Yeah. So what Matthew did was basically judge a book by its cover, which was the wrong thing to do in this instance.
And downplay the scene showing off Marty's character flaw and his never backing down from whenever someone calls him a chicken, which is pretty obvious. So
it is a very important part of his character arc across all three movies.
Right.
You can't just downplay it like that.
Yeah, we can, and the girl not being explored is not relevant.
Yeah, she seems to be
absolutely not relevant.
Yeah,
because the whole prison plot is already solved. It was solved in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
it's done. We don't
not,
need to bother with it.
She's not much of a secondary character. I'd say she's even a tertiary. She's just there because it's part of the story. And
it's just part of what drives the main thrust of the narrative forward. That's it.
right, she's not even trying to do anything. She's just, oh, this person that you met in the previous scene did a thing.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay.
You would not have even needed her to be in the scene. If we would have said she's in a boarding school and we'll never ever see her,
It doesn't matter.
it would work just as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It may seem like I've been nitpicking so far. In truth, I really can't do anything else. The story elements of this film are so small and disjointed that any comment you make about them is going to seem like nitpicking.
Again, this is meant to represent that they succeeded in changing history. The effects of that decision. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so what happens is once we say, oh, we fixed this problem, here's the aftermath. Oh, there's still a problem. It's a new problem. Oh, we got to go solve that. It doesn't matter if it's a time travel scenario. It's just how you have a denouement, essentially, after a plot point. It goes up, here's a plot point, goes down. Exposition time, boop, goes back up to another conflict, if we're talking about dramatic structure. So this is just getting along as fast as possible with exposition, with the showcase of what you did, and that's totally normal. So he just doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Everything up to this point was just contrived, from Marty getting pissed off that someone called him a chicken.
No, it's not.
Why is it contrived?
No, it's not. It was set up even as far back as the first fucking movie. Do you not remember that?
Yeah, what is contrived is all the shit you as the others say, that you excuse about TLJ.
This is the same character from not exactly the same character, but the same character trait from the same family, at least on Biff's side, which is being expressed here. So it's like, oh, that would make some sense. I'm not saying it's genetic, but that's what they're taught, or in some capacity, to behave as. And we have the same character from the first film acting the same way. That's not contrived. These are two characters being exactly the way they should.
Yeah, and some things are hereditary, not just looks.
Sure,
but
it doesn't matter though.
Even other traits, even behaviors,
yeah,
even
if it's
personality traits.
If it's genetic,
and this is just
or taught. It makes no difference. The behavior is the same.
Yeah.
So it's like, great. I don't care about the nature nurture argument. Here's the same guy from the future, his kid or whatever, and he's doing the thing. It's like, oh, he's gonna rise up Marty, and he does. Oh, he didn't learn his lesson.
Yeah, and this is here, especially since it is partially about time travel. This is This is what the movie is giving us as the textbook definition of history repeating itself. No matter how much time travel is involved, this particular situation of a McFly and a Tannen confronting each other like this is always going to happen at some point in history.
Yeah, well, it's also it also plays into an American trope about family feuds that go through generations.
Exactly.
With hillbillies and rednecks.
That's my point exactly.
You have in cartoons. I think there are even Looney Tunes cartoons about it.
All right.
Yeah.
So he thinks it's contrived because he cannot possibly foresee this outcome. It's like, all right, fair enough. You don't know.
For no reason, to the daughter trying to break Marty Jr. or anyone out of prison.
We already got that.
Anyway,
moving on.
Here's what happens. Marty and Doc go and rescue Jennifer, but it turns out that old Biff followed them there. Biff has learned that Doc invented a time machine and decides to use Marty's idea of taking the almanac and using it to exploit the knowledge of the future. So he steals the DeLorean, somehow magically learns how to use it, and
That is a point of
this is a good point
you can bring up. However, this is now 2015. How technologically capable were random people in 2015 in our timeline at this point? The DeLorean, the tech that how you control the time machine, once you know it's a time machine, isn't that complicated. It's not that complicated a mechanism. It's basically it's just so he knows how to use a flying car. That's not a problem. All you need is figure out what do the numbers do. Like where are you? Where do you come from? Where are you? Where do you want to go? That's all. You hammer those in, and then you hit the gas.
Yeah, this is specifically playing off of the scene in the first movie where Doc explains exactly how everything works. It's literally as simple as you turn on the time circuits right down the middle. If you know what each date does, and if you know how to punch in a date to where you want to go, that's it. All you have to after that, all you have to do is hit 88 miles per hour, and you're set.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
And 1985 Biff probably wouldn't have gotten it right. 55 Biff certainly wouldn't have figured it out.
No, hell no.
But 2015 Biff, he's interacted with a lot of technology at this point. This is
as we were shown earlier.
This is a very simple interface
for someone in this kind of 2015. Absolutely.
Yeah, remember the kids with the arcade machine that said, "What is this? You play this with your hands? That's for children."
Yeah, so that if the kids are that technologically adept, it's like someone like Biff, who's been around for almost the entire time those advancements were in existence, then I'm pretty sure he would definitely be able to catch on.
Yeah,
especially with how simple the DeLorean is to work it in the first place.
Yeah, and he is someone who's working with cars, so that's it. That's the easy part. And in our time, we have Elder Scrolls Grandma. Do you know Elder Scrolls Grandma? I don't know her exact gamer tag, but it's an old woman who loves Elder Scrolls games and plays them all the time. And there was a tweet from her lately that she wants the next Elder Scrolls before she dies so she can play it. So they should hurry up making it.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that now.
Well, it's the same. It's the same with looking at like the Time Machine from H.G. Wells. The way he described it, the interface, the seating, the dial, it was analog at the time, but like you would understand from whatever time period if you could read English and numbers, you know what they mean. So. It's not like some like you can't have a supremely complicated thing like time travel and you wouldn't have an interface that would make sense to the average person. That's why you have the light switch. Something as complicated as an electric circuit, you wouldn't be like, okay, I need a positive and a negative filament. I'm going to need some sort of radion gas chamber with a tungsten filament. You know, it's like, no. The genius guy who figured out time travel would make an interface that an idiot can figure out. So.
Yeah, and this is a time machine that is just a flying car which he can operate with a digital button interface from his era, from his time that he grew up in 2015. He can figure out how to operate this. This is not a problem. He's not that dense. This man has enough experience now that he can figure this out.
To the point where I actually did have someone like half jokingly bring up, it's like Mr. Fusion might be a bit of a problem for him. It's like, no, Mr. Fusion is from 2015. He would absolutely know that you put garbage into that thing to power whatever's in the back there.
The trash cans. We can go back to the beginning scenes where they are standing next to trash cans. The trash cans are from the Fusion Company.
Yes.
Even then, he could just normally run on whatever fuel is still in it.
The hilarious ending of the first film where he just goes to the garbage and starts filling it up with beer and whatever crap is in the garbage, banana peels.
Yeah, and that's from 2015. And I just told this guy, it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure old Biff would absolutely 100% know how Mr. Fusion would work since it's from his own damn time. End of discussion.
Yeah, and that would only be relevant if the DeLorean would be running out of fuel.
Okay, fair enough. He probably didn't know the 88 miles per hour unless there was a manual, but he'd just go really fast and then boom, he's gone.
Yeah, just gotta go fast.
Yeah. Anyway.
Travels back in time. Marty and Doc go and get Jennifer, and by the time they return, Biff has returned the DeLorean before they knew what had happened. He's not looking so good, though, and if you're as confused about this as I was, I suggest watching the commentaries on this truly excellent DVD box set they released. So all's well, and the two travel back to the year 1985.
Wait. Why don't you just say it?
Yeah, this is the one honest to God, like, plot hole in the whole movie. He should be disappearing, not dying. Just say it already.
But really, in this case, same difference. However, why is he not saying it? Why is he saying, "Oh, buy the DVD set"? Blah blah blah. Fuck off.
Yeah, just
Fuck
say
off.
it.
For someone
You
who's
are
trying
the one
to
making
criticize,
making complaints about how the movie's written.
Yeah.
Then you can explain the thing that people probably are confused about, that you were confused about.
It-
Because I wasn't confused about it. I just thought, oh well, that's an odd choice.
Yeah, this is the effects of time travel. He didn't think it's a big deal, but that's not his complaint. You're like, well, it's a flaw. You could talk about it. You could mention it. But nope, it's not a big deal to him. It's like, okay, if you say so.
It's like at worst it's an inconsistency because we already know what happens when history has changed
Yeah,
and those
exactly.
involved suffer the consequences of it.
Right.
It's an inconsistency at worst, but it is something that you
Does it
notice
affect
if you're
people
really paying attention.
differently? Like, is it maybe it's not his hand that's disappearing first? Maybe it's his heart. Who the fuck knows?
I won't deny that possibility. I'm just saying it's like at least on a basic level, it is an inconsistency on a surface level.
But generally, if you use your brain, you can figure out why he's not feeling well after changing his own history and coming back to this future.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is really a bummer because I wanted to see more of 2015. They drop Jennifer off at her house, and then Doc drops Marty off at his when suddenly Marty realizes that things are a little different. There's a padlock on his fence now, so he jumps the fence and tries to sneak through his window, where he gets an unpleasant surprise. Instead of his room, he finds himself in the room of a little girl who starts screaming. He tries to explain that he just got the wrong house,
Dumb joke
and then
incoming.
the Terminator bursts through the door, and... Oh, wait, no.
Boo. Moving on.
No, it was slightly less ridiculous than that. Oh yeah, a guy with a baseball bat comes at Marty
guy?
and tries to kill him.
A
So
guy?
Marty runs away.
The girl's
and then
father.
So, maybe he doesn't comprehend that there can actually be black fathers in the home protecting their family, so that's why he just calls
God.
him a guy.
Oh God.
Anyway, let's go.
Ouch. Ouch. Got him.
realizes that everything in this 1985 is all messed up. Strickland is brandishing a shotgun, the courthouse is a casino, we've got tanks on the streets,
Casino?
Godzilla's walking around town. I mean, this is
A
just
casino.
ridiculous.
No, it's not.
Did I say ridiculous? I meant interesting.
No, it's just dystopian.
Yeah. It turns out that in this 1985, everything in Hill Valley is now run by Biff. The courts, the police, everything. Biff killed Marty's father, married his mother, had Doc Brown committed, and did pretty much whatever the film would require the villain to do to the good guys at any given moment. Now, this is a serious problem in this film, and I'll tell you why. This portrayal of Biff completely disarms the idea of Biff in the first place. Biff wasn't just their quote-unquote bad guy in the first film, he was a person, and there was an idea behind his character. Biff was a coward. His natural state
No, he was a
cowardly,
bully.
and the only thing that made him formidable was his size. He was hoping against hope that his being big would prevent anyone from standing up to him, and as soon as someone did, he retreated into his natural state of cowardice.
Natural state?
His state
I
of
don't see
cowardice
that.
came out after the fact. He wasn't like that to begin with.
He's not. He's never had to. He never had. He seems to me like the guy who never had to fear anyone. And that is why once that happens for the first time, that somebody beats him, he's overwhelmed by the feeling. That's not his natural state.
Yeah, that's a very
Yeah.
odd statement to make about someone's personality, because under any kind of conflict, you're going to be afraid, but that's not the core element of, like, I never seen a person's like, your core personality trait or expression or internal feeling is fear. Like, I never.
Oh, I know cowards. I know people with actual avoidant personality disorder.
Sure, but that's not
they do not act like this.
right. They're
Well, they
normal
don't.
people.
Biff comes from an abusive family, a line of abusive family, and that is naturally producing bullies by venting out their aggression at others, at people that are weaker than them.
Yes.
It's a natural thing. That doesn't mean he's a coward. It's just he vents his own aggression and the pain that he suffered from his family. You can see that as tragic. I mean, it's also tragic for his victims then, because this is a cycle of abuse. Him getting shown that he can lose a fight, that is what broke him, because now he can't even win outside of his family, because he couldn't win inside his family. That is his problem.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that even after he learned this lesson, he would become a murdering, half-crazed supervillain is not only silly, but it
No, this is... What the fuck? That's not the same Biff. That is the Biff from the past that were completely different. This is the Biff who kept the almanac. The whole night at the dance would have gone completely different without Marty's intervention of getting it back. Biff would have taken other paths, other choices, etc. He would have still run into the manure truck for some reason. So maybe this is one of these time travel things where you have some of these key points in history that have to happen no matter how.
Yeah, this is a bit.
But this is after this guy, even if he got beaten up on that evening.
Yeah,
if that had happened, he would have gotten a second wind from just getting the millions of money and just buying everything.
Yeah, if I went back in time,
That is what happens, actually.
and gave my past self, like, hey guys, whenever you hear Google goes public, buy as much as you can. Like, if I told that to myself from the future, I think I'd have a pretty different future, pretty different outlook on life. So whatever the thing may be, like, he has an almanac for everything up until 2015, essentially.
No, just 2000.
Oh, up to 2000? Okay.
Just 2000.
That's 11 years of windfall. Okay, you're just constantly betting and hitting the jackpot on everything. So that would change you. Like, imagine going to Vegas and just everything's gold. You're buying the freaking casino at the end of the day. Like, that's how crazy.
Wasn't
this
that a
is.
55? So isn't that doesn't he have 45 years of
He has a
constant wins?
lot of time to go crazy with
Yeah.
greed and gluttony and whatever. That can change a person quite a bit.
He's basically super evil Trump.
He is super evil.
If Trump
everywhere.
Well, let's not go deeper into that.
Yeah, but look, here's the tower thing. He's the big blonde guy. It's basically the most sinister and dumb version that you could imagine. I'm surprised nobody ever made that connection.
Okay.
It's from the substance of the character. The only idea they have for him in this film is that Biff is our bad guy, so he's going to do all the bad stuff, whatever we decide that is. And that's all this is. Biff doing stuff. No thought to the character or any kind of a story. This is...
I'm not seeing the problem here. We've established he's super powerful. Why do we need to focus on him after that? We get the setup. How is the hero going to stop this empire that this guy has created? How are you going to do that, Marty? That's the great
decades
mystery.
unopposed. For decades unopposed. And guys like him, as long as he feels he's in power, there's no reason for him to be fearful or be a coward. Why would he? He has henchmen. He's not just had his little gang guys. He can probably afford his private army.
Yeah.
What would he need to fear at this point?
is the worst part of the film by far. And why is this Biff's movie anyway? This is supposed to be Marty's story, and he's just being strung along the whole time.
No.
So anyway, Marty learns that his dad is dead, and Doc comes and explains to him that old Biff from the future stole the DeLorean, gave the almanac to his younger self, and then returned it, thus changing history. Okay, so we got that. Old Biff stole the book and gave it to his younger self. So now Marty and Doc need to know when this happened. So Marty goes back and asks him. We then hear Biff give a narrative account of exactly what Doc Brown told Marty 2 minutes earlier. That means that we've gotten the same information twice in a row.
No.
How boring.
There's a reason why Marty tells him about it. Because he needs to somehow confront him about... Because in this timeline, Biff is his dad. Stepdad, but dad.
Yeah.
And he needs to figure out somehow, where is the fucking book? And
No,
when,
yeah.
or rather, what he needs to figure out is, when did all this happen? And by asking about the book, Biff understands he knows.
The thing with this is like, yeah, with the scene with Doc was just the theoretical idea of what could have happened. The scene with Biff after is the confirmation. That's why it works.
This is like a
it's-
classic
it's
mystery story where you have one guy tell an event, and then the guy tells the same event with the different perspective. That's fine.
It's just ask. It's just, here's a question. We need the answer. Character then asks the question to the character who knows the answer, and the character gives the answer.
Yeah.
And they just happen one after the other. That's all.
Why is
Yeah.
he offended? There's two explanations from two different characters. That's like saying, you know, the scene in TLJ where we get that one perspective. Why is it told 3 times? It's like, because we get to the truth on the 3rd time. It's a stupid truth, but it's still the truth. That's the point of the scenes.
And it's also different aspects of the question.
Different perspectives. Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's what you do. That's the point.
Yeah, Doc Brown gives the scientific mechanics, and this is just, it's not even about explaining the thing again or giving us the information. It's not for us to get the information. It's for Marty McFly getting the actual answer, because he and Doc Brown don't know the day. They need to know the day. That's all you need.
Okay.
Information about what day was it.
Anyway.
And just as a little bonus, we also learned that old Biff told young Biff to kill any kid or scientist that comes asking.
Oh, there's another thing I just noticed. They could have noticed when they could have noticed that the time from where you come on the DeLorean time machine shows a different date than last time if they had been paying attention when flying back to the present, because it showed the day that old Biff came from. So they could have noticed, well, something's weird with the time machine. Has it been used? They missed that.
Yeah. I don't think it records every single jump. It just has the
No,
previous...
it always shows you the last
it does.
jump it always shows you where you just came from.
Right.
It doesn't seem to keep a full log. It just shows you where did you come from. And
Yeah,
that thing would then be the day that they're trying to figure out here.
Yeah, they completely ignored that in the writing.
Oh no, yeah. Which implies that Doc and Marty both missed it.
And again, it is explicitly pointed out what each date indicator does in the time machine. It was pointed out explicitly back in the first movie. So there was no excuse for them to miss that.
Oh, is there a frame where we see the dates on the DeLorean time machine?
When Doc in the first
back
movie,
to the present?
in the first movie when Doc explains what the features of the time machine are, he says, this is where you're going, this is where you are, this is where you were.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
right
I
in
know.
your face.
Yeah, I know that. But in the second movie, after Biff made his jump, do we get a frame? Because I didn't pay attention. Do we get a frame where they jump back from the future to the present, where we can see the dates on the DeLorean?
All that. I think it's just an exterior shot almost the whole way through, but I think the implication is that was the first clue for Doc to realize something was off.
Yeah. If that frame exists, where we see that, and the date is actually the one where Biff came from, that would be really cool, because then we would see, man, these both Doc and Marty, they both missed it. Because after that jump, that date is erased.
Yep. I don't think there is a shot of the indicator from that jump.
Yeah, it's not relevant to the audience, but it would be relevant to Doc's plot point to figure.
Yeah, because Doc already knows everything's gone to shit by the time Marty gets to get back reunited with him.
Anyway,
About the book. And what the hell was that all about? I mean, Biff was just a horrible bully in the first film. When did he become such a natural-born killer, for God's sake? This isn't even the drunk on his own power Biff that gave this order. It's old Biff from the future.
The one that would have reason, at least some reason, to tell his younger self to do this shit. Because it's been, 60 years since he got screwed over.
And also, if you you can have a personality where you're kind of bloodthirsty, but you are restrained by either your own weakness or by societal laws that absolutely 100% apply to you. Right?
It's also the fact that old Biff, after 60 years, finally has a chance to change things in his favor, that his real, at least some of his real personality comes out, and it's not all that desirable.
Has Biff
always
always been capable of murder at the first opportunity? I mean, what the hell? So anyway, Biff then...
Well, the reason, yes, again, if you're the kind of person that will just go around assaulting people, like Biff was when he was younger, and getting away with it, then what's the next thing you jump to?
Yeah.
Well, if I can get away with beating people, I can get away with, severe beating.
If
and then
you
from
start,
severe beatings, you go to murder.
Yeah, if you start being aggressive and all of a sudden you have money and power, you're going to get more aggressive, you're going to get more ambitious, and you're going to be a mob, you're going to be a mafia, you're going to be your own powerhouse.
Hell, this still is in the middle of him saying the sentence, "Kid, I own the police."
Yes, that's just the logical extreme of that personality trait.
Basic despotism, it's keeps getting stronger and stronger. It's like, yep.
Wasn't it the phrase from I think it was Abraham Lincoln if you want to see someone's true personality, give them power. I know I'm paraphrasing about that.
More or less, yeah. That's pretty much what's on display here with the alternate present Biff. It's following in that path of, in that way of thinking.
Tries to kill Marty because apparently, whether he's young, old, rich, or poor, he has bloodlust now for some stupid reason. But Marty and Doc defeat him and then prepare to leave this alternate 1985. Now, let's talk about this 1985 for a minute. This 1985 is the most dank, dark, depressing setting I've ever seen in my life. But what's worse is that even though that's the case, it doesn't even work on a dank, dark, and depressing level because it's so over the top that I can't possibly take it serious.
Okay, so this is again an issue with the style of representing the future or the past or the present, whatever. It's supposed to be in your face, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes believable, and riding that fine line. So you're not supposed to totally get everything. You're not supposed to be like, oh yeah, this is completely believable. We have, Texacos. We've got Pepsi that comes out of the top of the table. We've got floating hoverboards that are skateboard. No, we're not supposed to be sold on everything. But that's the nature of, hey, what would happen in the future? What would happen in this small town where one guy has all this power and he's a power-hungry maniac? And he's a pervert or whatever. He's got strip clubs. He's got all these things running around. It's like, yeah, that could happen. That's the great thing about time travel. It could turn out this way. So long as there's no, spaceships and shit, 1985. So, he didn't become Mr. House or something. And,
I don't think Confused Matthew has ever heard of 42nd Street back in the day.
Really?
Ooh.
Oh. Well... These things happen.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
This setting would have been uninteresting on its own, but this is the follow-up to one of the most innovative and lively settings audiences have...
Wow, what a contrast, Matthew. You get this crazy cool future, and then you go back to the past, it's all screwed up.
I was just about to say, it's a little thing called contrast.
So he just wants the nice, bright, colorful stuff.
I guess... But
my dad explained why he likes TLJ, because he gets nice, bright, colorful scenes.
What would you...
Yeah.
Do you, though? Do you?
What would you think the villain does when he goes back in time and screws around with the present, or that time frame? Things would look bad. No
So
kidding.
Except for
another
him.
guy who just wants to see happy, colorful scenes, flashing lights on
Like,
the screen,
what
and
if-
maybe an explosion.
Even though Star Trek is a thing, hello.
Yeah, what if Biff went
he doesn't
back
care
in time?
about writing. This guy doesn't actually care about writing.
What-
He just
Of
wants
course-
his
of-
entertainment to be
Just-
the way that makes his brain give him the happy juice.
Just think of,
Meanwhile, the sky is blue.
think of the possible past where Biff does everything. He's the best dude. He's the mayor of a town. He has all these soup kitchens. He's got everyone in a job. Like, everything's amazing. What would Marty do? Should I change? Like, that would be another conundrum. Would I change this? Of course I'm going to change. This is not my reality. I have to go back. As much as he likes it here, as much as everyone else likes it there, he has to go back and change it because...
Yeah, it
So-
doesn't matter if it's the dank dark setting. It doesn't matter if Biff somehow made it great for everyone. It's not reality, and Marty knows that. Like someone said, yeah, no matter what the outcome would have been, Marty realizes the reality that he resides in. That's his reality,
Yeah, so
and he has that motivation to change it back to how it was before.
which is great because Marty is not a perfect character. He's flawed. This was his idea to bring the almanac home originally, and the Doctor stopped him, but someone of other caliber stole the book as well as the time machine.
And it just so happened to be Biff.
And his character represents what a thug would do or what a bully would do if he had money and power. So
Yeah, and they do that pretty well.
I don't see a huge problem outside of it could be a bit more believable, but that's really subjective of what it should really look like.
Yeah.
Ever seen. So every second after they get back from 2015, no matter what's happening in the film, we can't help but wish for them to get back to the future.
Contrast.
It was ever so much more interesting than this stupid place. But do they go back to 2015? No. They have to go back to 1955 and get the book from Biff in the past.
That's completely logical. Why?
Yeah, that because that's where the changes occurred that they can prevent.
That's the
Matthew.
problem. That's the you don't go to the future, Matthew, because it's more interesting. You go to the past because that's where the problem is.
Yes.
Jesus, what is wrong with this?
I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, that one statement is like taken just on a surface level. It's like, why would they go further into the future? It would be even worse.
He's very confused.
Hey, it's in his name.
Yeah, but this is like dumb. This is like stupid confused. Like, why don't they go back to the future? It's like, it's called the future for a reason.
That's right, they have to go back to a place that we've already seen before. Now, at this point, when
No,
I saw this for the
it's not-
first time,
no,
I was
you're
thinking to
getting it wrong.
myself, no, go back to 2015.
Why?
I don't even care what you do there. I just want to have fun again. But no, they go back to the same...
See, he's an idiot. He admits he's a childish, infantile idiot who just wants to see colorful scenes instead of an interesting movie with changing scenes and clever little problems.
Yeah, let's go back to the cliffs of insanity in The Princess Bride because I really love the sword fight scene. Let's have another one of those. It's like, no.
Yeah. Because the time window in 2015 where you can get the almanac back is much, much smaller. In 55, you have an entire day where you can try to solve the thing.
Yeah,
The
but
problem with Marty was that he was locked up in the car shed.
yeah, but the argument
However-
becomes if you go to the future in 2015 to stop Marty from taking the almanac, where is that future time?
They can't.
Yeah, where
The
where
one
is it?
thing
How do
the
you
one
get
thing
there?
I can give you, the one thing I could give you is you go back to 2015, just a couple hours, go into that shop and buy the almanac before actual Marty can buy the almanac and destroy it.
But the thing is, though, it's like it's the implication is that the changes for the alternate future have already stretched that far ahead.
Well, this is the
So
problem.
that's why they go to 55 to the root of the problem.
This is why we don't speculate on, well, if you have a time machine, you could
All right.
do this
right,
or that.
God, I'm tired.
because the future has been changed. So how did he? How
Right,
did he?
they can't go to that. 20,
How? Yeah. So
20.
how
Yeah,
did he go?
It's already
to-
been changed.
That's the problem.
See, his stupidity now confused me.
Well,
Thank you.
let's
asshole.
not go that far. I think because it's a confusing topic. Because now it's like, does that future exist
It's
anymore?
not that.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
It's not. Yeah, it doesn't. They can't. They don't have access to it anymore.
Yeah, that's what
Right.
I'm saying.
Why-
The
the
changes
only
have already gone
question
that
is-
far.
The only question is, why could Biff get back to that future to bring the DeLorean back to Marty and Doc?
Well, that's because
that is the question.
well, that we can just say, before we go back to the video, that we can just say that he just caused those changes, and they were slowly creeping into that time period.
Makes no
You could
sense.
maybe bring up the argument that it's his life that's being changed, so he gets back to his original
boy.
future.
So he's that he's the first one affected, as
Yeah,
opposed to everything at once.
It's too many paradoxes. You're not going to get anywhere. It's all this talk about alternate timelines. You can't go back to the other one because you only have a machine that goes forward and backward, not jumping to another dimension. It's too confusing. It's too much.
By Matthew's logic, that would at that point it would just have to become multiverse logic, which it's not, and it never was going to be.
Yeah, it's too complicated for this film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's because or it's locked longer because you have these three anomalies of Doc, Marty, and his girlfriend still being in 2015.
Yeah.
Whatever things.
Yeah. Anyway.
And do the same old thing.
And that's part 2 of the review.
Welcome to part 3. So when they get back to 1955, Marty and Doc start forming a plan. Marty has to track down Biff, get the book, and destroy it. So Marty buys a silly costume and goes to do just that. When he finds Biff, it's
not even a
in
costume.
between the scene when he gets his car wrecked and the scene at the dance. We find Biff upset about the estimate on his car when he notices Lorraine. So he fixes himself up, walks over to her, and asks her to the dance. Lorraine turns him down, which pisses him off, so he insists. The girls then beat him up and run away. Biff then runs after them, shouting, "It's you and me, Lorraine. It's meant to be. I'm gonna marry you someday, Lorraine. Someday you'll be my wife." Now, even at the ripe old age of 8 years old, I just didn't buy this at all, and I felt that it really detracted from Biff's character once again.
What? How?
In the first film, I would have been surprised if Biff even knew Lorraine's name. Every time he found himself in proximity to her, he took the opportunity to molest her, not whisper sweet nothings in her.
So he did know her.
Yeah, he's a
Yes.
he's a chauvinistic, egocentric fellow. It's like, great.
If he constantly harasses her, he probably knows her name.
Yes. The whole thing later, it's like when he tries to hit on her, it's like that's just him trying to bounce back from the incident in the earlier scene in the first movie where he got hit, where he hits the manure truck.
Maybe
That's him just trying to bounce back.
Maybe Matthew never really talked to people in his high school that dated each other and they're blissfully in love and they think they're going to live together and grow old together. It's like I've heard these I've heard these stories in yearbooks and people in the hall. It's like, yeah, this happens. Kids are stupid.
It's
I can't
You also
believe
tend
this
to
would
know-
ever
tend to
happen.
know some of the names of kids you never interact with.
yeah.
I read those old yearbooks like, holy shit, you really thought you were going to marry this girl? Oh, boy.
Bullshit.
And what ends up being reality surprises me. Like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
No, it's not like it never happens. It's just very rare.
In this case, he is a caricature of the jock bully guy. And this mentality is not unheard of even nowadays. So, hormones.
Nowadays it's even worse.
Yeah, 18-year-olds and hormones, especially guys, you got to be careful. So,
Her ear. She was an object to him. He wasn't in love with her. He certainly didn't want to marry her. He just wanted to put his meat hooks on her.
Yeah, that's
Fine.
called being a dominant asshole.
yeah, it's fine.
He wanted to control her.
It fits.
End of the line. That fits with his character.
And
Kind of like how Biff tries to control everybody through violence.
Yeah, it's
The
kind
only
of
thing
like
he's good
it's kind of like he's an abusive personality.
wow.
Yes.
Never
Man.
seen that before.
Matthew,
It-
you should really get out more.
Yeah. Go to a hospital, like just any
Old
floor.
past Matthew from 2008.
Actually, go to an old folks' home and just talk to people. That'd be fun too.
They have lots of stories to tell.
Yeah, they'll tell you all kinds of bullies and crazy people that beat them up, or they were them, or whatever. Just there's all kinds of people out there that were violent. Why not? It's reality.
That's so true. Beryl in the chat saying that this website is plagued with too many airhead critics. You're not wrong, especially around the time of these kinds of reviews, like Confused Matthew and a whole bunch of others, like the early days of YouTube.
I remember this part 3, like this actual, when he said these things, I was like, that's a weird take. That's a strange take on Biff, because we already know his character. He's not that complicated a guy.
So this is how actual dump looked like before video essays.
Yes!
Now you expect me to believe that in between molesting her at the cafeteria table and molesting her in the car, Biff walked up to her on the street one day and politely asked her to the dance?
It fits.
This makes no sense.
Oh my god.
Yes, it does.
He tries a different method to win the girl. He tries another method. It's like, dude, what do you think he's trying to do?
Again, he's trying to bounce back after the incident with the manure truck. He's trying a different method just to see, it's like, hey, maybe this'll work. It fits. That's the long and short of it. It does still fit with the character.
The plot
He's not
is the
very
same.
smart.
No, he doesn't know what to
Yes.
do. His plot's the same. It's always been the same. He wants Lorraine. That's it.
That's the basic gist, yes.
It doesn't matter whether he goes in from the side or the front. It's like he's soft-spoken, he's loud. Yeah, whatever technique works. Dude, keep trying. Keep throwing things at the dartboard till you get it. That's
exactly the point of this scene. He tried something different, it still failed, and then he just kept going.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it worked in this reality, in this timeline. So
In the alternate timeline, yeah.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't have minded this little tweak of the character's motivations if it had been for the sake of some kind of a story,
it's the same
but it's
motivation.
only for the sake, once again, of us watching Biff do stuff.
No, it's the plot.
No.
It's the whole setting of the past and the present. What are you talking about, Matthew?
It is
This has always been Biff's goal. Nothing's changed.
He wants the girl, then he wants the money, then he wants the sugar, whatever. It's the same shit.
Yeah, the point of this is that it ends up like this little like retroactive foreshadowing to the alternate 1985 where that does happen. It's like once you put it together the way it's meant to be put together, it makes sense. It just does.
This is like when you try and try again, you keep failing, and Biff is clearly learning something, how to approach this girl. So
Yes.
And when he's put down here, he yells that he will own her or whatever
he
said.
has this goal.
That someday he'll marry her, someday she'll be his wife.
This is
Yes.
the plot of the villain,
Yeah.
clearly stated to the audience, and it's good. It's silly, but that's the nature of boys in high school.
Yeah. And since this here is the altered past, where at this point he still has the almanac, that will be the future if the almanac is not taken away from him.
Well, at this specific point, he doesn't have it yet. It's right after this very moment that he meets old Biff. But you are right. You are still right.
Yeah.
But you're still right. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens next? With Marty hiding in the back of Biff's car, Biff encounters his older self. The two of them drive back to Biff's house, and guess what we hear? We hear the exact same explanation we heard 3 scenes ago when the alternate 80s Biff was talking to Marty, and the scene before that when Doc was explaining the plot. That's right.
okay.
This is the 3rd time we've...
No, this is okay. Because we also get a different explanation. We get it with the example of, this actually works. Because Biff is so dense and doesn't believe anything that he needs to be convinced. What is technically happening here is a cut-out part of a corrupted version of the hero's journey, where the magical old master from the side of the road comes up and offers you wisdom.
Yeah.
I see this as kind of like the setup for like a nursery rhyme. Like you have the Snow White is going to fall asleep, but she's going to get a magic apple stuck in her throat or whatever the nursery rhyme is, and that sort of sticks with you. Like, what's the setting for Back to the Future Part 2? Someone goes back in time and gives someone a book with all the scores of all the sports so they can bet and make money. Like, that's the thing. That's the keystone of this entire story, is this thing happening, this event.
And what it is here is that once the young guy takes the wisdom of the old master or the magical creature, old Biff is both here at this point, his life improves. Biff's life improves because, oh yes, the thing actually works, and he's raking in the money.
It's the same with the villain of a Bond film. This is his master plan. This is what you need to do to take over the world or blow up this or that. It's like, yes, this is the thing the audience, as you know, if they're paying attention, needs to be reminded of, because this is what needs to stop. The hero has to stop the bad guy somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it puts you in this. This is the really, really important MacGuffin of this movie.
Yeah, go to.
This is what the movie. This book is what this movie is actually about.
Go to Terminator series, right? What do they have to do? Does everyone know? Save John Connor.
John Connor.
That's every single movie. Save John Connor to stop the evil robot future. That's what this is. It's Back to the Future.
And the good thing here is that in every time the almanac is brought up, it's explained a bit different. It's not just a repeat of the same lines. Like, what he forgot is it was already explained in the shop.
Yep.
It was, so we technically have the fourth time here. I don't see any problem with this. Every time it is explained in a different way, from a different angle. It's not boring. It's just held up as, this is the important thing.
Yes.
And here we get the most thorough scene of that the magic of the MacGuffin actually works. It's been run through, and Biff, as dense as he is, still doesn't take it seriously until the second time that after he's been beaten down, and then again he listens to sports news on the radio and sees, fucking hell, the book is actually right. Maybe I should give in to this. The almanac is his second wind. That makes him Tyrant Biff Tower Biff. I don't see how you can't see this, how you can't understand
You could make the argument it is redundant to the narrative, because the narrative is just telling the audience the same thing in a different way.
Not necessarily.
Well, no, meaning they didn't have to show this scene. They just have to show that Biff understands. Like, they could have a scene after this where he's walking to his house and his eyes are lit up and he has the book in his hand. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. Like, that could work too. But this scene is fine. It does the job. And different perspective. Now it's the villains, and they've got their master plan, and they're going to enact it right now. It's like, ooh.
Well, it also goes to show that Marty's plan would have actually worked for him too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes, like that's a kind of like backhanded, compliment to what if Marty had done it? Yeah, would have worked.
Although
but now it's like when I. Sorry, go ahead.
Marty probably wouldn't be as crazy in transforming the city into the crazy world it is. He'd probably be a little more.
Yeah, he probably would have. He would have been drunk with power.
He also wouldn't have been as crazy rich, because there's like 30 years of sports that had already happened by the point where he is a teenager.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been as much with Marty. Yeah,
but yeah, that still would have been almost 40 years.
Yeah, and here's
about 30 years worth of
someone said it in chat.
Things would still have gone wrong with Marty, because he had not overcome his chicken problem.
It goes up to 1950 to 2000. Georgius Rex said it earlier.
Okay,
right.
Yeah,
but here's my own personal view on Matthew's take on this. When I first saw this, I'm just like, really? That's how you see it? And then I couldn't put it together why I liked the structure of the three scenes so much. And Wisp kind of started that thought earlier. It's like, look, here's the question, and then later here's the answer. The way I saw it after seeing Matthew's review here, after this point, it's like Doc saying it earlier was the question. Biff saying it was the answer, but because it's Biff, you're not 100% sure. We have the date, we have the basic details, but you're like, you could say it's that in some cases you're not sure, but then here is the definitive confirmation, and that is bolstered by the fact that old Biff does show the younger self that the almanac works, like the definitive stake of this whole thing. It's like, yeah, if we don't stop this, we're fucked. Because here we know for absolute certain that, yes, it works, it's gonna happen, we have to stop it.
And what keeps the scene interesting, besides that, because it's not just an exposition scene, is Marty is hiding on the back seat.
Yeah,
he could be found out at any point.
The fact that he's there all 3 times.
He's on the hunt for the book.
That too.
So we are following him while all of this happens. The scene is less about explaining to Biff how the fucking thing works. It's more about Marty getting a chance to snatch the thing. The joke about the scene is old Biff is pissed at how dense young Biff is.
Yes.
Those two things is what the scene is really about. The almanac is just carrying. And
to this day, those little bits of comedy in this scene in particular, they still hold up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Heard this the 3rd time. Let me ask you a question.
It works.
If you hear Doc explain to Marty that old Biff gave the book to his younger self, then you hear alternate 80s Biff explaining to Marty that he got the book from his older self.
The answer.
Then you hear old Biff trying to give the book to his younger self. Are you getting the same information? Yes.
Not necessarily.
You're getting the exact same information.
You missed the entire movie. You missed the entire movie. You missed characterization. You missed tension. Because the first one is an exposition scene. The second one, with Tyrant Biff, is an action scene. It's a tense action scene. It's crime and action and the chase scene.
Yes.
And this is just comedy. You don't get the difference. And this guy defended TLJ?
Mm-hmm.
How? If he is upset with this movie having errors perceived from his point of view, his very strange point of view, how can he not see that in TLJ? Which is littered with actual crap.
All right.
That's a good question.
So why did we need to watch this 3 times?
It, honest to God, works.
The reason is because there's no story here. It's just exposition.
No.
In fact, if you think about it,
no,
this
the whole thing is story.
Was...
The whole thing is Marty's journey.
Yes.
It's Marty's journey on the hunt for the almanac.
All right.
That's the story.
We get it. He obviously doesn't. Let's just keep going.
God,
the hunt for the almanac that he caused.
Exposition. It's like, because of this hoverboard incident, Griff now goes to jail. This crazy old codger with a cane shows up, says he's my distant relative, and he lays this book on me. The time continuum has been disrupted, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein, but reality to everyone else. Your other self will miss a lightning bolt to the clock tower, you won't get back to the future, and will have a major paradox. I mean, it just goes on and on like this, right to the end. And this sums up my ultimate point. The whole film was one long excuse for itself. So
it's because it's solving the problem it caused in the beginning.
The film,
that's the joke about time travel problems.
The film is an excuse for itself.
Oh, like TLJ. Which is an actual excuse for itself.
I don't see how a film is excusing.
There's no excuse for TLJ. Come on now.
No, but the plot-wise, it tries to excuse itself.
Well, it reveals nothing. It's like, we got you with that one, but we don't get anything out of it. And you're like, why did you do that 7 times, Brian or Ryan? But this is the nature of time travel. You go back in time to fix a thing, and you end up breaking things.
The movie is about fixing an error.
Yeah. So you should focus on the plot, which is what they're doing. We don't need the details of Biff literally buying and betting and whatever on matches and sports. We just need to know it's a thing that that he's going to do it, and he figures out what he needs to do to get power and money.
Yeah, and we don't need to see more about superficially happy 2015.
This is no different than
That adds nothing to the plot.
A detective interviewing suspects, and they all tell roughly exactly the same story of like, where were you and what happened, only from a different perspective.
Yeah, every scene in this movie drove the plot.
That's good.
Maybe, and even if it's just 90% true, that's not how modern movies work. Modern movies are like, what, 10%? 10 to 50% if you're lucky?
Let's have a joke. Let's have 10 minutes of social sexual tension or whatever. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, let's have a social justice propaganda scene here that adds nothing to the plot.
Yeah.
Nothing and nothing to characterization either.
Let's have the $1 million actor we hired to do the thing that he's known for.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, this movie is every scene, all four almanac scenes, almanac explanation scenes, all work different and all drive the plot. And he doesn't see that because he's an idiot.
Finally, Marty ends up having to follow Biff to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. And for God's sake, I mean, talk about scene recycling. This is movie recycling.
No, this is movie magic. Because this scene, I don't think was shot from this angle in the first movie.
It wasn't.
So this whole scene is reenacted completely. So this is movie magic. You have the same actor on screen several times.
This is a time travel movie. I'm not surprised they used the same setting and timeline of the first film. I'm not seeing a problem with that.
Let's let him finish his point on this in particular, because...
And
Sorry,
while these scenes still add tension, because Marty still has to avoid direct contact with his past self so that the events of the first movie don't get disrupted, because then he would cease to exist.
Yeah.
The whole third act is just the third act of the first film again. You could really just pop the DVD out, stick in the first film, and watch the last 20 minutes.
He's wrong.
This third act was nothing more than a novelty act, and it was one of the most self-conscious moments I've ever seen in a film.
Nope.
Self-conscious.
Here's the thing, and this is what I brought up earlier. Around this time in internet reviewing, when a lot of people, from what I've seen, at least a few people that covered Back to the Future Part 2, there's one aspect of the movie that a lot of people skated over altogether. And we mentioned it earlier, the fact that it took 4 years after the original movie for this one to come out. This movie came out in '89, so naturally, they had the opportunity to play on the nostalgia of the movie, of the first movie. And so watching it now with that little bit of context, which isn't much, I'll grant you, but still, it makes the whole like nostalgia aspect of this scene in the second movie that much more satisfying. And like Wisp said, it's like the part 2 Marty has to make damn sure that he does not fuck everything up, because we have done all this before.
This
is set in stone.
Added to this.
Yes,
There's more complexity added to this.
Yeah.
Furthermore, you can now imagine, at least in part, probably, that when you watch the first movie, that these events take place behind the scenes.
Yes.
Although not every scene is shown. You could imagine that. Another thing, since you mentioned skating, the hoverboard scene that he complained is just a repeat of the original skateboard scene. Old Biff comes out of the cafe, watches his grandson and his stupid gang get screwed over on their hoverboards, and he has a déjà vu moment where he says, this is all oddly familiar. So movie is aware it's doing this.
It was very much intentional, yes, and that's part of my point. It's like they took full advantage of the fact that it took 4 years for a sequel to come out, and they went all out with it.
Yeah, it's like it rhymes.
I mean,
in this case, actually,
literally, yes, because it's time travel, they could get away with it, and it paid off. And this is one thing I really, really hate in reviews that simply do not bring up the context needed to critique specific parts of a movie, if not the whole thing. This detail is essential to understanding why Back to the Future 2 is the way it is. On top of the fact that the first movie was just supposed to be the one movie, and the fact that they were backed into a corner, and all the other development hell that happened in between.
Okay. 4 minutes left.
When they made Back to the Future Part 2, Zemeckis and Gale were well aware that everyone had seen the original Back to the Future a zillion times and had memorized every frame. So they said to themselves, wouldn't it be neat to see all the stuff you've seen for 5 years, but from a different angle? Now, I don't know if it was neat as much as it was a boring retread, but even if this did have a novelistic appeal, here's the problem. It's only novel if you're watching this at its release in 1989, 5 years after the first.
Why?
Not really. There's a little thing called the benefit of hindsight. Once you get why this is the way it is, there's really not going to be much complaint.
He's not even seeing the second movie in these scenes. He's just seeing the first movie. He's not seeing what's going on right now.
This is arguing like you could only appreciate episode 7 in Star Wars if you watched episode 6 yesterday.
You know what, honestly, I think 5 would be more of a fitting thing because of the whole Darth Vader reveal.
I know, but this is silly.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, even with the Star Wars example, you could only appreciate episode 5 when it came out in 1980, again, like you just said, it's silly at the end of the day. Because context matters.
But no, he's not. What I'm saying is, he is not seeing what current movie Marty is even doing in these scenes. He's just seeing, oh, these are scenes from the first movie. So it's the plot of the first movie. That's not what's happening here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like he is just taking it at face value. It's just a boring retread.
Update.
No, it's not.
He can't even update his mind. I've never seen someone this dense.
He's disregarding.
Somebody home, Matthew.
He's disregarding like what part 2 adds to it, and just discarding it completely as just a boring pandering retread. No, it's more than that. That's the point, and the fact that it was very much deliberate to intertwine all of this together. After 4 years after that first movie, I don't know what the hell this take is about with this.
If the extreme version and silly version of this is a short story from Stanislav Lem in the Star Diaries, where the main character's spaceship does get through a temporal anomaly, and other timeline selves of the main character start appearing that need to, and he starts arguing with them, so with himself from other times, which he eventually becomes these other selves and needs to haggle out to repair the ship somehow to get out of the time anomaly. So eventually you have the ship full of himself from different times at the same time. And this is technically that, but smaller, and trying to avoid interaction with yourself.
Yes.
That's what makes it tense. He doesn't get it.
No, he doesn't.
Also, read Stanislav Lem's Star Diaries. They're hilarious.
Okay.
Don't watch any adaptations of it. They're all horrible, and they're distorting and propaganda's bullshit that go against what Lem was actually writing about. Read Stanislav Lem.
Good to know. Now I know what to avoid.
All right.
Anyway,
Let's
film.
get on.
At this time, you really can say, wow, I know the first movie inside and out, but I've never seen it like this before.
Yes, that
but
was the
this
point.
only works for one premiere.
No.
50 years from now, when people try to watch the trilogy back to back, they're going to see this third act and say, wait a minute, I just saw this a few hours ago.
It's okay.
Which is another problem with this film.
How?
With all the
Why?
in-jokes and setups, it has no life of its own if it's not parasiting off the other two films.
What?
So after me...
You disagree. I disagree.
No, not
You're wrong.
really.
This is like
Yeah, he's wrong on this.
This is like arguing Downton Abbey takes place in this certain castle, which you saw in the last season. Oh my God, they're in this same castle, and this it's like, what? Why is that? The room's the same. It's been that way for 100 years. Oh my God. The characters are the same. They've been that way since the last season. Like, what? They're doing the same thing. It's like, yeah, they're a bunch of aristocratic people who are trying to govern the land. What is your problem?
This guy doesn't get the hilarity of time travel. Back to the Future is one of the few movies that made it entertaining.
Yeah, it's a
And this is why. This is why.
Absolutely.
We are trying to work around the first movie. Not fuck up the first movie. We're trying to work around it so that we don't fuck up the first movie.
Yeah, not fuck it up, not literally do it over again. They are working. They're working around it, plain and simple.
It means you add depth to the first movie retroactively, and by sneaking, it's a heist plot, if you will. It's an involuntary. What do you call this? You sneak around, you try to steal a thing, you try to not be noticed, not make anything react to you.
Yeah, it's a heist film.
Yeah, it is it is a heist film. Yeah, that does give it its own identity.
They get the book back and burn it. Unfortunately, the DeLorean gets struck by lightning, and we learn that Doc was sent back to 1885. Now, as it happens, this next complaint I have, which is apparently a complaint a lot of people had, doesn't really matter. But I'm going to bring it up anyway. Not to nerd out on you or anything, but there are two rules we were acquainted with when it comes to the DeLorean traveling through time. The first rule is that the flux capacitor has to be activated, and the second is that the DeLorean needs to be traveling at 88 miles per hour. This is not traveling at 88 miles per hour. Now, on the commentary, Bob and Bob try to give the explanation that the fire loops that appear to read 99 were really a sign that the DeLorean was spinning at 88 miles per hour, and that's how we get past this problem. Well, okay, fine. The DeLorean spun at 88 miles per hour, and
you know what getting struck by lightning can do to your tech? Random shit and then fry it.
Also, he gives the explanation for the DeLorean going back in time as being struck by lightning, but not the other thing about old Biff not disappearing.
Also, this DeLorean is fully functional, has full energy, and gets lightning struck on top of that. Maybe Doc just hasn't figured out that if he gives it even more silly power, he can just do the time travel standing.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm kind of concerned that if he were to watch like a time loop story, it would drive him insane. Because he'd see the same thing. Like there's a few Star Trek episodes that do that, like Groundhog Day sort of crap. He'd be like, why are you showing me this scene again differently? It's like, that's the point.
And yeah, and again, going off of that, it's like, yeah, being the car being struck by lightning is also a callback to the first movie, but under a different circumstance. In the first movie, that it was essential to get the lightning into the flux capacitor just to have it do its normal. No. I'm talking about. But let me just make my point. It's like in the first movie, the lightning bolt was essential to get the flux capacitor charged up to travel back to the future. In the second movie, the car already has what it needs to travel in time, and we do see earlier that he does accidentally turn on the flux capacitor. He just looks like his hand gets tangled up in something, and he just flips it on by accident.
He also changed the time that he was aiming for by 100 years.
Yeah, and that's why we actively see the flux, the time displays going on the fritz, and that's where that malfunction comes from. But in this second movie, it already has what it needs to travel back in time with the flux capacitor accidentally turned on. Then it gets an extra charge of energy from the lightning, and it causes the power surge. So it's an inversion of the conditions needed for the first movie's time travel at the end. And that, honestly, and that, as we know, that creates the circumstances for the third movie. And I like that little inversion of the ending of the first movie. In the first movie, yay, we made it back to the future. In the second movie, oh no, accidental time travel.
Yeah, and Smart, if he doesn't like repetitive scenes, especially in time travel, and thus possibly couldn't stand Groundhog Day, we need to make him watch The Endless Eight.
Oh God, no. No. Anime for Confused Matthew, that would drive him insane.
But The Endless Eight.
Yeah, no, no one should ever watch that. That's
whatever you do, don't give Confused Matthew Dragon Ball.
I can give him a 90s flick called 1201. Watch 1201.
Gingaman.
That's totally fine.
Have you seen The Endless Eight, Gingaman?
I've heard the
what
name.
I'm talking about?
I've heard the name. I've never seen anything of it.
The first time, it's one of these things that you can do one time in media history.
It's because
once in a lifetime.
Because Japan can do it, they did
in all of time, in all of history of media, you can do this once.
Okay.
It's,
know.
It's you know how Neon Genesis was such a crazy, retarded ending that you just sat there in awe. This is like, why am I watching this again for the 10th time?
No, 8.
Was it 8? Was it 8 episodes?
It's 8. It is 8 episodes.
It felt like there was 10 or 11. I was like, what the?
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. And look, the point is that season of Haruhi came out in the summer, and The Endless Eight played in the summer. Every weekend, one episode, and you would sit down in this horrible heat and watch this episode, and at least by the third time, you'd think, wait a minute, because every episode is very subtly different. Just tiny things, and not at the first time. From the first to the second time, it's merely someone has a different swimsuit on.
That's
different trunks.
When I downloaded it, I thought someone just copied the first one. And
they have different clothes on. Every time they have different clothes on.
But the events were all the same. The conversations were. I was like, is this really happening?
8 times, but by the 6th, it's starting to get a little more. The main I forgot the name of the male character starts to catch on. Like, wait a minute. And alien robot girl then tells him, yeah, we've been looping for now 1 million something 100,000 times, because she remembers each and every one of them.
Yeah, she's the super logical guardian person who just accepts reality for whatever it's worth.
Yeah. So she her mind is not wiped between the repetitive days. So what I don't know, it's like several thousand years that this went on. And we look, we're lucky. We only saw 8 days.
Anyway.
Not 1 million.
Anyway.
Yeah, there are other time loops. 1201 is my recommendation. It's a made-for-TV movie back in the early 90s. The guy, ever heard of the show called The Single Guy? It's the guy who played the main actor on that is in that film. Anyway. Let's keep going.
Went back where we learned that the flying circuits were destroyed, which means that the DeLorean went plummeting to Earth, spinning at 88 miles an hour, and Doc Brown is dead. Now, fortunately, the third film was so good that this little hiccup in the logic can be overlooked.
No,
That's
you
right.
don't know how he landed. You don't know how he landed. You don't know how he flew.
Also, why are you saying now that he's dead? Even at the end of the second movie, we know for a fact he's not dead yet. It's only at the beginning of the third movie we find that out.
Yeah, but he's just going by, it was spinning so fast, he must be dead. Like, he's in Doc Brown, while in the DeLorean, doing the time loop stuff, is weird things are happening, weird physics distortions are happening. He might be stable.
Yes.
During that. And how did the DeLorean land? We don't know. Maybe it got a gentle angle. Who the fuck knows?
All right.
Oh, sorry. Just a little bit
and
of
Doc
dust.
Brown
Sorry.
is dead. Now, fortunately, the third film was so good that this little hiccup in the logic can be overlooked. That's right. It's okay to be outlandish if it's for something.
Oh, fuck
Back to
you.
the Future Part 3 was good because it went back to the roots of what made the first film great. It was its own story, it had heart, uncontrived adventure, and since Buford Tannen was a completely different person than Biff, it was okay
he
to do
wasn't.
whatever.
No, he wasn't. If anything,
the
this is
exact same Biff.
Yeah.
But as a Western villain.
that's I was about to say that. It's like, if anything, Buford is the audience's revelation for where Biff gets all his shit from.
Yeah, and he has the same three gang goons.
The ancestors of the other three goons too.
Yeah, yeah. It rhymes. It actually rhymes.
Yes,
Lucas, this is how you do it.
Yeah, this is what George Lucas meant when he said that it rhymes. This literally rhymes, and it's on purpose because time travel.
Yeah, and Matthew, missed every single bit of foreshadowing for what happens in the third movie, because that's in all of those scenes from before that he complained about. This is an unnecessary scene. This is an unnecessary scene. No, all foreshadowing for this movie.
Yeah,
and when you think about that, that it was supposed to be one big movie, it makes even more sense that they put them there.
Yeah, they did. They purposefully sprinkled in all of that foreshadowing throughout all of Part 2 into transition to Part 3, and that is why.
All right.
Wanted with him. Back to the Future Part 2 was just an incoherent mess, and it spawned more incoherent messes with more scene recycling and having characters on screen for the sake of having characters on screen. Incidentally, one of the two writers, I can't remember if it was Zemeckis or Gale, had a philosophy when making this film. To paraphrase, it was basically, when it comes to sequels, people want to see the same thing done differently. And personally, I am insulted by that philosophy.
Okay.
I don't want to see the same thing done differently. I want to see something new, something fresh and different.
Really? Because when I go to a restaurant, I want the same thing, only I want, hey, the double cheeseburger or the Filet-O-Fish or something like the same. Oh, it's a McDonald's. They have good quality. I want this thing now. I want to try their other products.
That's a fallacy.
Well,
if you think that, just use any other thing than McDonald's.
Yeah.
But here the thing is, especially in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, sequels being the same but different is a formula that works well if you change the right things. Like, personally, I like Predator 2. It was a lot of the first movie, but it changed so many other things, but it kept the original elements of it and how everything worked, but it completely changed the setting of where that works. From the actual jungle to the concrete jungle. I like that. It was playing around with it while also figuring out a few more little things about how this whole Predator thing works.
Yeah, that's a logical evolution of the concept.
Yeah. Aliens compared to the first Alien movie. Similar thing. We get a little more exploration of how the world works, while we have a character that already knows what the fuck is up, how this shit works, what needs to be done, so the movie needs to be a little bit more complicated on what the problem is. Otherwise, it would be just a normal repetition. And that is what some sequels nowadays that try that don't get right. I wonder, did he? You said he liked TLJ. Did he like Force Awakens? Because that's just a rehash, and it's a bad rehash.
He did do a review of Force Awakens, but I don't remember anything from it.
The thing is, TLJ didn't do anything new. It just did things. It just did random things. And the things that it had, the old things that it had, it didn't even do right.
Well,
yes.
Let's look at other 80s films like Ghostbusters 2. It took the same plot of the first film added extra elements. They had slime, so now they had a slime gun and a few other things. But it was basically this almost the same plot points as well. But I enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't because it's the same. It's just like the first one. It's like that's pretty much what I wanted. I just want something tastes different but looks the same.
Is since Georgius Rex mentions it, is Empire Strikes Back A New Hope done differently?
Oh boy, that is, I mean, not what people are expecting. And
From the structure, is it the so from the theme of a scene? Is it done that in a different order? Because A New Hope ends with the big battle. Empire Strikes Back starts with a big battle.
In all seriousness, from a certain point of view, you could argue that, kind of.
Yeah, and you get the training scene with the old magical guy at another spot.
Yeah.
You get the traveling companions rescuing each other. You get those at different spots. But you also advance the plot.
There's other scenes that don't make much sense.
You have moments where you're trapped. I mean, maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but you could probably, if we just reduce it to what is the theme of the scene? Is it New Hope in a different order?
That's a bit of a stretch, I think.
It can be, yeah.
Thought experiment. I would maybe if I'm bored enough, I'd run through that when we're watching the movie.
Right.
It can definitely be argued though.
Okay, well,
but it would take its own discussion altogether to figure that out.
We are almost done, and then we're gonna go straight to memes because this is pretty weird.
Almost over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Marty and Doc doing stuff.
Really?
I want something with substance. Oh, as it happens, it turns out that the
What is
Wachowski
substance?
brothers had...
Here it is.
Look. You didn't like substance because you ignored the scenes that had substance. You shat on them.
I don't know what he means by substance. That could be many things.
I don't think he knows what he means.
Is it
means
romance?
by substance.
Is it like people desire?
I don't know. I think he was random characters that don't add anything to the story to be explored. Like random sidetracking.
I don't know.
Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale's philosophy of sequels in mind when they made the last two Matrix films. I mean, who knew that an awful philosophy such as this could result in two of the biggest cinematic disasters in the history of film? That's really what Back to the Future Part 2 is. A disaster.
No.
With the small narrative they included in the third film, you could really skip the second film entirely. And I would recommend...
No, you can't.
No.
It's not worth watching for any reason other than just to look at it, but even looking at the box art will be more entertaining and substantive than this film.
No.
Anyway, that is my take on Back to the Future Part 2.
It's a horrible take.
Is he like
You're
joyless? Does he have no happiness? Like he looks at this film and goes, "Yeah, I have all these problems, and everything else sucks." Like he liked the future world. He's like, "Well, that was nice and pretty and blah blah blah." And it's completely
He's a kid.
worthless.
He's just a kid who wants to see different things on screen all the time.
I don't know.
On screen.
He wants the future.
That's what it is. He doesn't want to see things he has already seen. He wants to see new things. And he wants to see bright and colorful things.
All right. Well,
Bright, colorful, happy things, and more of them and new.
Take care of... Whoa. Take care of those sniffles? Who is... This guy looks familiar.
What? Oh, you're on memes. Okay.
I think he argued with Peterson once. I can't remember. I could be wrong.
Oh, really?
He's the socialist dude, I think. I can't remember his name, but whatever.
Oh, man.
It wasn't much of a
Zizek?
debate. Yeah. Is it? I don't know.
The Zizek conversation was completely pointless.
Yeah, nothing actually happened during it. They just said their own bit. It was like they weren't even in the same room. Canadians are weird.
Zizek looks more disheveled.
Sorry.
Jesus is in a comic book. Okay.
No, just skip all that, please.
No, fuck you. Fuck you, Ginga. We're not skipping this shit.
Then he just wakes up.
Fuck you, I'm Christian.
Is that crucified Nopon somewhere?
What is going on?
The first page is Jesus. It's reciting the whole, like Pontius Pilate asked the Jews if they want to crucify their king, right? And then, of course, the second page is, Jesus died. And then, third page, the Olympians come along. They start talking shit. But Zeus comes on. Let us gaze upon this pathetic creature who claims himself a god.
Look, he bleeds from a few thorns on his forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is. Oh my god.
Yes. Like, so, in the third page, Jesus hops off the cross, immediately backhand KOs Poseidon, like, kicks fucking Apollo in the dick, KOs him, elbows Hercules in the diaphragm, KOs him. Like, what happens in the fourth panel? I'm not sure on the fourth page what's happening. It's he either dodged out of the way of Poseidon, or he did what I prefer to think of as he teleported behind him, turned around, and then backhanded him.
Christian power fantasy much?
Yeah, what comic book publisher did this?
This was the Goddessy written by Rob Liefeld.
Oh, really? Rob
Yeah, this art is definitely Liefeld.
Liefeldian, yeah.
Holy hell.
Okay, now I'm seeing it. Okay.
Goddessy.
Okay, now I'm liking this.
What?
Because I just...
Part of the Evangeline. It's a crossover between Evangeline and Glory. From
Wow,
Maxim Press.
what the hell am I looking? This is like some B-rated porn flick, but it's a comic book.
It looks like it.
I think that's supposed to be Evangeline and Glory as like.
Oh.
Fire.
Okay. That's news to me. Jeez.
Is it alright if I read these next two?
Whoa.
Like the whole thing about the time travel and Back to the Future.
Okay.
It's like, we've had this time travel discussion on the NBC show a few weeks ago. It's like, yeah, basically, in part one, Marty travels back in time and ends up changing his dad, so Marty returns to the present, and his whole family's changed compared to what it used to be because of his actions. That's part one. In part two, Biff travels to the past and gives his past self the almanac. Applying the rule from part one, it means that Biff would end up returning into an alternate future that he himself created because he changed his past. He shouldn't be returning to the same timeline that Marty and Doc are, and consequently, if Marty traveled back to his own present, he would return back to his own timeline, not somehow entering Biff's alternate timeline. In other words, the only reason for Biff returning back to the future is a narrative one, because without it, Marty and Doc couldn't return back to their present because he took the DeLorean. Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It doesn't make sense, but that's the story. We don't think about these things too hard. It's not a big deal.
You can excuse this by... You could excuse this by... this time machine has barely been used yet, so Doc Brown has not, through experiment and verification, mapped out how all this shit really works.
So, did they actually live in
the
Detroit?
only... Sorry, go ahead.
There's a Back to the Future... No, it's in Los Angeles, isn't it? The Back to the Future stories. Not Detroit.
It's like, I forget where Hill Valley is located in this universe.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, the whole thing is like, it's like, you don't even have to think about it too hard. Just the concept that the first movie had, it's like, if you change something, the changes are progressive instead of instant. Just with that, you can write off Biff going back to 2015 the way he did. That's simple. It's a stretch, absolutely, but it's something.
All right.
You could ask the question, why did he return to 2015 in the first place?
Yeah, like if Confused Matthew was like a hardcore sci-fi guy, that would be the number one. Like, how did Biff get back to the alternate timeline he just changed?
Yeah. I mean, why he got to the future could be that he was expecting to get into his rich.
Yeah,
life
you would argue stuff like, well, he's part of
which is a very Biff thing for him to think.
Yeah, like you would get into like Star Trek stuff, like there's a time bubble. His atoms are from an alternate world, but the ship is still working in that alternate world. All kinds of things you could argue, but they didn't bring it up because it's not that kind of story.
Yeah, these are MacGuffin contrivances. Time travel is wonky. I think the only way we can explain this somehow to make this work is Doc Brown hasn't completely understood how time travel affects what and how.
Yeah.
Because he was conscious enough to not make too many active changes to anything. The only big changes that really have happened were caused by Marty and by Biff.
Yes.
So
And that's
those
why
were the big experiments of how things change. And the third movie then is actively changing things in the past.
Yes.
Because it doesn't seem to really destroy the space-time continuum. So let's try to keep me alive in the past so that I can have a life.
Yeah, so, and then they let and then that's the logic that leads them to say it's like a little minor thing here and there, a little minuscule thing. Okay, we can let that slide. It's just one little detail that is insignificant enough that we can just write it off. Like the naming of the ravine, because it stays as the old name of Shonash when it was meant to be Clayton because of Clara dying, which we already talked about earlier. So moving on,
and keeping Clara alive isn't a problem because she should have died, but it isn't a problem because she gets together with Dog and they go time traveling out to wherever.
Yeah.
So she's not part of the timeline anymore. Anyway, it is as if she's dead.
Well,
and Dog is as if he's dead.
Anyway, Confused Matthew did have other takes which were pretty decent. I think the one on the Lion King was pretty good. He had some good things to say about that.
Not the re-review, not the original.
I don't know if he did a re-review of it or not, but
for Lion King he did, and it's an hour long.
Okay, all right, that's the one I remember him doing, as well as Minority Report, because that was like, oh boy, he really does not like Minority Report. Why is that?
He was mostly on point with Spider-Man 3 when he did that one, and that one also has an upload. We might have, if you guys want to do that one eventually. That's another one.
Who knows? I'll stick back to the voting. This was a special request from one of the patrons. I thought we could do this. I like reviewing other critics. That's fine. So yeah.
I'm just saying that the Spider-Man 3 one, if someone else requests that one in the distant future, hopefully distant, then that's an actual mostly good take he had on a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the good thing about this is just a really bad review. There was no ideology in it.
Yeah,
it's just plain bad review. And this is I think it's an interesting contrast to 14 years ago towards now.
Interesting, because he did make comments about misogyny which were accurate, because that's what Biff was when he was acting around.
Yes.
Yeah,
Lorraine. So I was like, hey, that's without any perceived bias before the 2011s or 12s, whenever Anita popped into the scene.
I mean, yeah, and the silver lining in this whole review is the fact that because this is a re-upload, it's like he was able to clear the air. It's like, yeah, I do not have this opinion anymore. There's a reason why my view on this has changed. His words.
Yeah.
Well, so at least he learned from this.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, that was fun. Everyone have a great long weekend. I'm still enjoying mine. The weather's fantastic. I hope it's warm and chill wherever you guys are, having a nice cool glass of whatever your favorite.
It was raining all day for me. It only just now stopped.
That sounds good to me. That sounds like you're watering your lawn and you don't have to spend any.
Well, on the one hand, that, yes. But on the other hand, my house is on solar power, and whenever we get the chance, we use the excess sunlight to have the AC on almost the whole damn day without raising the bill.
That's great.
That's an advantage.
Interesting.
How much did the solar upgrade cost you?
I'd have to check. But
yeah,
has it amortized yet?
It's usually no. It takes about 20 years. I think the rate goes from $15,000 to $25,000. That's Canadian dollars. I don't know what the translation is.
I've already said this. Like, because of COVID and certain personal happenings in my life, I had to move back with the folks. But I'm putting in $100 a month to fully cover like the monthly bill for the conversion. I only know my part. Right.
Good stuff. Cool stuff. I've seen a lot of those online as well as on YouTube, and it's an investment, but it's a very interesting investment. I saw a guy who actually bought the not the Elon Musk shingles, but whatever product his company made that he was selling. Because there's other, we've had solar panel shingles before in the past, but this is just the new thing because he made it. And there's the conversion. He had a small battery. He wants to upgrade to a bigger battery so he could store more. But then it's going to be like the city requests more, and they drain from your battery, which is kind of cool to get money back. So it's an interesting investment. I'm curious if it's working out for everyone out there, as I know there's a lot of complications to be worried about, concern yourself over. Maintenance is always a big thing. You got to get it checked every 4 months or whatever it is. So anyway, cool topic. Thanks, guys. This was completely up to my patrons, so I do thank the recommendation. I like covering the video.
Despite the horrendous take, this was a pretty decent trip down memory lane for at least me and Smud.
I know. It's like, hey, I remember this guy. What the hell happened to him? And I checked his channel. He's just playing games on live stream. So.
I mean, but again, the silver lining for at least this review is like he learned from the take he had and completely disavows it now, which I'll give credit for that.
Yeah. I mean, we when we comment on it, we comment on his 2008 version.
Right.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Just saying this for clarity.
No, I know. I'm just saying. It's like, well, I say that because in the very intro of the re-upload, he's pretty much says that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just when I call him an idiot, that's his past self. That's his 40
years
ago.
No, I know.
We could say that was an idiotic take. That's fine.
All I'm saying is that the silver lining here is that he knows it too, which is a plus in my opinion.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I have to go back to making my own video and getting a nice cool beverage because it's a lovely, lovely long weekend. So thank you guys.
Yes.
So enjoy your was it Independence that's coming up for America?
4th of July, yeah.
4th of July. Yeah. I'm still trying to avoid the news in Canada because God knows what's happening today. So anyway, thank you so much everyone for attending. Thanks for popping in, Bears. I know you're busy, but do appreciate it. And as always, Wisp, you're here. Thank you. So
hello.
Let's see each other soon. Keep the voting going. Keep the suggestions coming, and we'll have yourself a good night. Bye now.
Bye. Have a great time.
Fuck out of here.